Joby here, and this is the OVERit podcast. This is series 2, episode 2, and I'm today with my good friend Billy. This man has absolutely transformed my life in just a short period of time. He's an amazing healer. He's been through a lot himself, and it really is a pleasure for me to be able to sit here and do this interview because his story is very powerful and very inspiring. So I hope our intention is for you to hopefully hear something in this video that can inspire you, help you overcome mental health, anxiety, trauma, pain, whatever it may be. Or if you're looking to enhance your life, I'm sure Billy's story is going to inspire you in some way. So, Billy, for those of you who don't know you, tell us a little bit about your background and how you've become to now being a very powerful healer.
Okay. The best place to start, I suppose, is at the beginning. So if I just give a brief overview of my life from as far back as I can remember. So I grew up I was born in Harlow, Essex, and initially it was me and my mother for the first couple of years of life. Then my stepfather came into my life when I was around 2 years old. My brother was then born when I was around 3.5. So for me, I've had to go back and really analyse each individual part of my life from the perspective of the child. The way that I view my life in the past now is completely different. It's a completely different perception to which I held as a child. So it's very important to go back and really connect to how the world looked through a child's eyes. So some of the scenarios that I'm going to describe now on the surface don't appear to be traumatic, but I've discovered otherwise through my process. So as I mentioned, it was me and my mother and my stepfather come into my life at 2 years old, and so I've identified that as a traumatic event in my life, because as a newborn baby growing up, I was familiar only with my mother, and so that new male energy coming into my life at such an early point, it took away the attention of my mother, so to speak, not fully, but it took some of that attention away from me. And moving a little bit further down the line, my brother comes in, and again, it's another. Although it's a beautiful things are happening, but from the child's view, from the little Billy's point of view, these were traumatic experiences, So then my brother is born, and again, it's less of the spotlight for me. And I grew up around a party in a party environment. There was a lot of drinking and drug taking and all of that sort of stuff going on. And that wasn't, I didn't know any different. We grew up in that environment, and that's the way things were. So that, growing up in that environment, in that type of energy, it did later on affect me. But we'll come to that a little bit later in the story. So then I found like a safe place around Nan and Granddad's house. And me and my granddad would spend a lot of quality time together, and it was a place where I got 100% attention. So it was safe. Exactly that. And moving along a little bit. When I was around 8 years old, I asked a question to my mother: why have I got brown eyes and everybody else in the family has blue? And my mother told me that Michael wasn't my real father. So again, yeah, of course. And from that, perceiving that from a child's eyes, it was a devastating blow, and I was already feeling kind of separate anyway. And that was sort of confirmation of how I felt. So it was a tough time. And then a year or two later, my granddad passed away. So within the space of 2 years, there was two
major.
Yeah. And we're all going to experience this type of stuff. So it's not a horror story, so to speak, but these are huge events taking place in a young boy's life. And these events are shaping my idea or my view on reality. So these are traumatic scenarios that are transforming the way that I see the world. So I remember being 11 or 12 and being quite depressed and quite sick. Met my real father, and again I had these huge expectations of this man being, everything that you would dream of in terms of a father figure and all the rest of it. Yeah, and that was again quite a disappointing encounter. Again, it just didn't meet my expectations, and I'm sort of skipping through it a little bit. It's quite a long and intricate story, but I'm going to touch upon the points which I see that are most relevant and that the audience are going to be able to connect to mostly. So going into senior school, I was a skateboarder growing up, and so I had long hair, baggy jeans, and all the rest of it. And that I believe the word for that then was grego. Yeah, so going into school, I was already pretty shaken up anyway for the reasons I just mentioned, and a load of other stuff in between. Terrified of what people thought of me. I remember being in school, and it was a really daunting and scary experience, and just not having any just completely being lost in it, not knowing why I felt the way that I felt. Too young to even be at a place of exploring emotions and seeing the connection between these things that had happened and the reasons why I was feeling how I was feeling, etc., etc. So going into school, a scary place that was for me. I think in year 7 I used to play the trumpet as well, so I would walk into school with a trumpet box, and that obviously.
I imagine you playing the trumpet.
I wasn't very good at it. But I tried anyway, and I was really keen to learn when I went to school. I wanted to learn, I wanted to be involved in everything, and some things I quickly decided not to pursue, i.e. the trumpet playing. Yeah. But yeah, it was a scary time. So the first couple of years, I wanted to be involved in all of the classes and wanted to work hard, and that also, that didn't make me, that wasn't, I didn't get the acceptance that I wanted being that type of person, because the guys that wanted to get on at school,
the cool kids,
they weren't the cool dudes, were they? So again, it was another kind of blow to my idea of who I was and what I wanted, because that wasn't fitting in with the status quo, So a very confusing time, and of course looking for some sort of acceptance, wanting to be liked by the most popular friend, the most popular guys in school and whatever. So slowly you start to reshape yourself or adapt to these new surroundings and start making the changes. So of course the long hair disappeared. My clothing started to change gradually from, baggy jeans to Nike tracksuits and all the rest of it, and Patrick Cox shoes at school, and all of that carry on.
Yeah, I had them as well.
Yeah, and they were quite cool. So we started, people used to smoke joints around the back of the bin sheds and all that sort of stuff.
It's always around the back of the bin shed, wasn't it?
Yeah, and I was always against all of that stuff. Yeah. I didn't want to smoke, I didn't want to take drugs, and that started to change. And so that I met a guy called Robert, who was friends with some guy that I'd known since I was a toddler, and slowly started to mingle in with this friend circle. Got a girlfriend that I was besotted with, and all of the rest of it. And slowly, before we knew it, I was out with them at the weekend, down the underpass, drinking, rolling around in the bush, completely drunk and whatever else, and smoking weed and just, throwing whiteys and all of that, young teenage school stuff, and and then at some point, we was allowed to smoke at my house, which was good for me because it suddenly made me quite popular.
I bet. Go all smoking around you.
Yeah,
everyone loved you.
Yeah, of course, exactly that. And before you knew it, and then we didn't have much growing up in terms of in terms of money and stuff. And so some of my friends had motocross bikes and this, that, and the other, and I wanted all that stuff. So I mean, I used to get £10 pocket money or whatever. That was never going to buy me a motocross bike or whatever else, you know. So I started selling some hash at around 12 years old. Yeah, and then I'd have the friends round, and it escalated quite quickly. I'd end up with queues of people at the door on a Friday night, and my parents
12 years of life.
My parents would be going berserk, and I was now telling them to piss off and all the rest of it, you know. And don't get me wrong, we had some fantastic times. It was hilarious, you know. We'd go out and do a paper round and get stoned on our BMXs and all of that stuff. But it was okay. And it's only looking back now as an adult do I see the error in my ways and all the rest of it. But hindsight's a wonderful thing.
Oh, of course. Woulda, coulda, shoulda, right?
Yeah.
Could have done things differently.
Yeah. So what happens next? So I mean, by the time I'm 13 or 14, I'm absolutely rebelling at school now. I'm very, very aggressive. I hate everything and everyone. I'm throwing chairs in the classroom. Teachers can F off, all the rest of it. I'm completely rebelling and going a little bit crazy. The teachers are pretty worried about the decline in my mental health, you know, because it's gone from being a student who wants to learn to an absolute rebel very quickly. And of course, now I'm making sufficient money from my drug dealing activities that I'm in the belief that I don't need to ever go to school again, you know. So it was quite funny in some ways. And by the time I'm 13 or 14, I'm getting picked up by this guy, obviously no names involved. And we're driving to Chinatown in London, and we're filling the car up with sacks of weed and driving home at 1 o'clock in the morning. And I'm 13, 14 years old, you know, with bundles of this weed in my house, and now I'm distributing cannabis on quite a large scale, considering I'm 4.5 foot and 7 stone, and you know, did not give a shit, and and it just went from there really. So before you knew it, things, you know, one thing led to another, and this has sort of gone a little bit out of control. And around 15 years old, took my first line of cocaine. I remember it being offered to me and me taking it, and the euphoria that come from that. It was the moment where I, you know, believed that I found what I'd been searching for my whole life. I could speak. I remember having a girlfriend, confidence. I felt strong and powerful. It gave me everything that I didn't have. It's an illusion, of course, but
for a short period of time. Because we all know how bad cocaine really is.
Indeed.
I've been through hell with cocaine.
Yeah.
Absolute hell with it. So I highly don't recommend it.
No. and that's where my journey really sort of began in terms of drug culture. And again, now, you know, it's kind of a similar thing, you know, in the way that I'm now working with the light, shall we say. I was working on the other side of the spectrum then, and I was in the belief that everybody should have this, you know. And in the same way now, I'm working in this line of work. I believe that everybody should have this, but my belief was that everybody should have this drug. So I start selling cocaine at age 15, and it's, you know, we're talking very small quantities, but again, by the time I'm 17, it's gone completely crazy, and I'm associating now with guys that are much older than me, and we're driving around in fancy cars and selling drugs and all the rest of it, and it gets pretty wild. And then we end up, you know, getting some connections where we've got everything in abundance, you know, ecstasy, cocaine, the whole lot, and you know, we're watching gangster movies and Scarface and really falling into this role. Yeah, and start, you know, and I'm a small dude. I'm not so, you know, I was hell bent on getting big and strong. So down the gym, steroids, all of that carry on. And before I knew it, I was in a cyclone of drugs, and my mental health was
deteriorating.
Yeah, it kind of fueled a personality or an identity. I needed to be pretty crazy. and I needed to be big and strong, and at least I needed to portray that for me to be successful in my drug dealing career. And I built a pretty strong and confident character. What was beneath that was the absolute opposite, a scared little boy. But on the surface,
persona of
this lunatic who does not care and all the rest of it. And I really did care, but was completely lost. And looking up to these guys, who had the cars and the houses.
In your personal life, you had this scared, shy, but when you went out with the mates, you had to put this persona on.
For sure.
And it was a big fake. And
it was a complete lie, really. And of course, don't get me wrong, we had some really great times in all of that stuff, but that's not why we're here, and that's not why we're talking about what we're talking about.
It's relevant because it's your journey, it's your story, because it's molded you into
who I am right now.
Yeah, and I can vouch for the energy that you have right now and what you've done for me over the last couple of months since me and you has transformed my life. So if anyone is doing this and they want to get healing, we'll talk about that later on. But I mean, I can personally vouch for you and Jenna, what you've done and what you're doing here. Your healing work you're doing is sacred. It's very, very powerful. So I'm very grateful for what you've done.
Yeah, well, thank you. So I'll continue. Lots of things start to happen. And so I mentioned briefly in my story earlier that in around year 9 at school, I started associating with this guy called Robert, who became my best friend. But he was everybody's best friend. He was a really special guy. And again, there's so much, but just to touch on the most important parts that are relevant to this story. So a little bit later on in the story, so my friends are now, I'm giving them stuff and then they're passing it on and blah blah blah, and so that I was kind of like the head of my little circle in terms of this little thing that we had going on with all of the drugs and whatnot, and that had quite a profound effect on a lot of lives in a really, really negative way. But we didn't see that then. We was just living in this bubble and getting on with it. And of course, the parents of all of these people will be massively affected by the drug taking that took place. Some of these guys have got people turning up at their doors for trouble, and it really was in the same way that this beautiful work is. It works in the same way in whatever energy you're working in. So again, when I'm like 17, I'm with the girl that I was with when I was 13, the childhood sweetheart, and then so that life appeared good. We had a nice little place and cool cars and cool clothes and lots of money in the drawer and all of this sort of stuff. And I broke up. I was aspiring to be like my elders in the circle that I was in, and so of course they had a different girl in the car every other day, and I wanted a piece of the action. So I ended up, I was had several different girls coming round my flat on different occasions, but I had a girlfriend at some point. One of the girls has told my girlfriend, and then all of the girls have ganged up on me, and then I broke up with this girl, and I broke my own heart massively. Because I was following the lead of, I was looking at these people wanting to do what they did and in the process broke my own heart. And a little while later, my friend decides to go to the army. And just before he goes, we have a fight at the bottom of Old Harlow High Street. And we have a bit of an argument, and he tells me that I've ruined his life, and that basically what we do, the drugs and all the rest of it's destroyed his life, and that I was responsible for that. And of course, then I didn't think too much of that conversation. And he went to Afghanistan, and he was killed within. Yeah, he was killed within 6 weeks of being there. And of course, that conversation or that argument that we had, or exchange of words, rung round my head like a bell for 10 years, and it was just the most devastating blow. And again, it was these things coming sometimes freeze, they say, but the breakup with the girlfriend, and then this devastating blow and this loss. It hit me so hard, and I remember receiving the phone call and just dropping to the floor. And similar to when my granddad died, that was my first encounter with death, and it felt like when I got that news that person was dead, I imploded and couldn't comprehend the idea that I'm never going to see that face again. Really, really, really sad time. Very, very sad. And the way that I see it now is beautiful and a completely different angle of sight that I see these things, because they create, like we just mentioned, these big traumas, and they hit me hard. But these things were the fuel to me becoming.
In the darkness there is light, as I say.
Exactly that. And so then all sorts of things started to happen. We was being raided by police all the time, and I'm not going to tell you too many of the stories, but we was involved in like some really horrific car crashes. I nearly killed my girlfriend in a car crash. There was a lot of stuff. I got stabbed in the stomach. Main artery was severed, and quite ill for a while. Lots of things like that.
How old were you at this age?
17.
17. You got stabbed.
Stabbed, yeah.
You killed your girlfriend in a car crash.
Yeah.
Wow, so this is all boiling up.
Yeah. And there was lots of things happening. We had serious organised crime associations smashing our doors down on a regular basis. I mean, there was one particular occasion we had our cleaner around, and my friend would always live with me. It's another sad story that we'll come to in a moment. But she was cleaning, and her little girl picked up the bucket on the floor, and the water sort of flowed down the wooden floor. And as that happened, the door come off the hinges, and all of these men have come running in, screaming police. And of course, they've all slipped over on this water. So I had like 7 or 8 policemen just on the floor, soaking wet. And of course, it was quite funny, but I was also petrified at the same time. Yeah. And that was constant. Every day there was something happening, that was pretty crazy. And that just gives you a rough idea. I mean, our house was blown up with us in it. So I woke up and the whole place was on fire. And had I not have got up for that piss or for that wee or whatever, we probably wouldn't be here today. Anyway, endless of those types of stories. Driving around in stolen cars, telling people that they weren't stolen, and getting chased by police, and all sorts of stuff. It was real carnage.
Chaos.
Absolute chaos. And again, so then when my drug use was becoming a severe problem. And it was a very, very tough time. And so that I had quite a credible reputation. So it got to the point in the end where my drug taking was so out of control that I was, taking large quantities of drugs off of people that were 3 times the size of me and meant to be, in fact, it seems that the bigger and scarier that they were, the more it appealed to me to tell them to fuck off. And I did that on numerous occasions, took large quantities of drugs off of people, rung them and said, stick your money up your arse. And of course, and after about, 2 or 3, after 2 or 3 years, I started, because the consequences wasn't a concept to me. And of course, people were looking for me, and so all sorts of things started to happen. We've got people turning up outside my house with sawn-off shotguns, and we've got these are gladiator-sized men turning up at my doorstep that would literally rip my head off. And just didn't care. And always, and what I've seen that is so beautiful in my story is that all of this stuff, the car crashes, the getting stabbed, there's an endless amount of near-death situations being presented to me. And I always walked out of them fine. 2 of the car crashes, everybody was quite badly injured. I walked out. I'd never had a seatbelt on. In one of them, we hit a lamppost at 100 miles an hour. I didn't move from my seat. The only window that didn't smash was mine. Everybody else was quite badly injured.
Looking after you. They knew you had work to do.
Yeah, and all of these situations. I mean, there was one occasion where one of the guys had rung me and was downstairs, and I had taken a load of drugs off of them, and I was basically telling them to poke it. And I've ended up in a car with these two huge men, and he's got a gun pointed at me. And at this point, I think, okay, this is it. This is it.
Sweats.
And I don't know how the situation transformed itself so miraculously, but I found myself being absolutely terrified, contemplating being kidnapped and tortured, or I don't know, maybe killed, I don't really know, to sitting in McDonald's with these guys half an hour later, laughing and joking. And then I'd given them my big long list of people that owed me money. They took it and cleared the debt, and that just doesn't happen. Yeah, I don't know. They're bizarre stories, and it's more intricate than that. But that's the short version of it, you know. But that happened in lots of different times. Multiple times, you know, times where. So it's only now can I see why the protection was there, because I know, and I'm not saying I'm 100% sure of my role and what I'm doing, and so that I can see now that all of these scenarios, there was something working on my behalf which allowed me to stay alive, basically.
The lessons you must have got from this as well. Now you look back and reflect,
it's phenomenal. Yeah. It's phenomenal. Just even talking about it, it's bringing up this cold and.
Do you know what, I can feel that energy.
Yeah, it was
dark
and
really very morbid.
Yeah. And ambulances taking me away, and God, how my mum must have been observing all of this. And of course, I didn't care about what anyone else thought, or there was no concern about anyone else's feelings in any of this. It was for my mum to have witnessed what I was going through. It must have been, as a parent, absolutely horrendous, you know, and they did their best. There was no helping me, you know, and the more that they tried to help, the more that I rebelled and didn't want that. So that's where we get, and then one day we're driving along, and again, it's another long story, but I'm driving this car that is apparently a rental car. So I've been getting these cars off of this guy who apparently owns this rental company. He doesn't. He rents the car. He rents the cars. He rents the cars off of a rental firm and then gives them to me. I pay him, and then he doesn't pay the rental firm. So now I'm driving around in a stolen car, selling drugs. So we drive around the roundabout in Harlow, and there's a police car on the side, and so we drive down the road, and the police are behind now, and so I've got a couple of friends and the girlfriend at the time in the car, and they're on the radios. I'm looking in the rear view, and I'm telling my friends we're about to get pulled over. Anyway, we get quite some distance down the road, and still nothing. All of a sudden, I can see the side mirror. There is about 15 police cars burning up the side of the road. So I know what's coming now. Now all of a sudden, the riot van pulls out in front, and the police car's up. Smash all the windows and drag us out. Big scene, and all the kids were just coming out of school at 3:15 on a Tuesday afternoon. Yeah, outside Burnt Mill School in Harlow, and it was proper, mate. It was like SWAT teamed us and dragged out the car, and I'm like, what on earth's going on? And this is a stolen car. And I'm like, no, it's not. Anyway, so we get back to the police station, and there's a particular policeman who's been after me for some time. His name was DCI King, and so he had raided our house numerous times, never found anything. And he said to me, "One day I'm going to get you." And I said to him, "Fuck off." In the end, they was raiding my house, so they had come, smashed the door through, and they'd say, "It's all right, you can go out. If we find anything, we'll come and get you." So I could just leave the police to search the house. It was quite a relationship we had. Like in the end, we was getting used to each other's presence. I'd even make them tea sometimes. Like it was, and we would have a laugh and a joke. They weren't, we were still human beings at the end of it, but just on different sides, and it was quite amusing.
Come around the radio, do you want a cup of tea?
Yeah, it's funny. There was all sorts of things, and I remember fighting with my partner, smashed over the head with a mirror, and I've smashed my room up, and the police have been called, and I've got blood trickling down my face, and we had cocaine all over the side, and a replica handgun on the side, and the police have come in, and I've got one of my friends over in the corner all twisted up on drugs, and the police he's like, what's that on the side? And I pick the it's only a toy gun, like a gas gun, but it looks like a real one.
Yeah.
So as I pick it up, put the gun down, put the gun. It's like it's a toy, but there's cocaine all over the side. No mention of that. No mention. Please don't.
They got a gun. It's next level. Right?
So yeah, so this is what happens. So we get back to the story. So I'm in the cells now, and they're going to raid my property. So I'm like, okay, fine. So I know that I've got this bag of powder there. It's benzocaine. So it's something that we used to mix with cocaine to obviously make the bulk, make the yield higher or whatever. So we would double the amount of quantity or whatever. But I've got that in a bag in my cupboard, and I'm quite sure that it's not an illegal substance, and that there's going to be no problem. So DCI King comes back with this bag in the cells and says, "I've got you." So I'm quite confident in saying, "Go fuck yourself," because I said basically it's not drugs. It's not drugs. So he's come back an hour later. They took it down the lab. Come back. He said, "I'm arresting you with the intent to supply cocaine." So I'm now baffled, thinking, right. So we've sent it off for analysis. It turns out that there's a small quantity of cocaine in there. So now I'm banged to rights, and I'm now on bail. Now this is the moment that my life is saved, actually. So it was horrific, actually, because from that moment I was on bail for 2 years. So the 2 years waiting to go to prison, I was not really selling drugs anymore. But yeah, what I started to do again was take drugs off of people and not pay for it as a way of just existing. You know, I didn't know any other way of making money. This was all I knew, and in the end, I wasn't very good at selling drugs. I was just fantastic at taking them. Yeah, and yeah, that's how it got in the end, you know. And so that anyone that was stupid enough to give me drugs should have anticipated probably not receiving the money. So anyway, I got myself in a whole load more bother, and again, you know, there's plenty more of them stories to tell you over the next 2 years, but we'll cut to the chase. And so that I go to trial, and it turns out that a couple of people that are in the jury, no family members, and all the rest of it. So there's a load of juggling around. Cut a long story short, I get 4 years. And so they closed the door behind me, and my girlfriend at the time was absolutely devastated, crying, and although I'm sad because I know I'm about to go to prison, there's a huge sense of relief occurring in me, because I know that I'm about to be locked away from myself. And although I'm a little bit scared about prison, you hear lots of stories about how, you know, scary it could be and all the rest of it. And so that I had a level of anticipation, and fear and all the rest of it. And am I going to be okay? Am I going to get on? All the rest of it. But, you know, the sense of relief sort of like overweighed all of them fears, you know. And I remember they banged the door behind me. Relief. And so we go to Chelmsford, and there we are. End up in H&P Wayland. First 3 months are really difficult. I'm paranoid as hell, on the phone to the girlfriend.
This is still at 19.
And so now I'm.
Oh, this is a couple of years after.
Yeah, so I was 20. By the time I actually went to prison, I'm 22. So I'm 22 years old now. I'm in prison, HMP Wayland. First 3 months were really difficult. My girlfriend was no longer my girlfriend after 3 months, and she's now with a different guy or whatever's going on. So again, this created absolute devastation, you know, because as far as I was concerned, you're going to wait, and all the rest of it completely unrealistic and quite a high expectation of myself, considering I have been nothing but a nightmare. You know, it weren't like I was this golden boy. I was an absolute nightmare. But again, it created a fuel inside of me. So the first 3 months, I was just crazy about gym. And it was funny. So as we're walking around the yard, I'm starting to bump into all sorts of different people that I've got mostly problems with, you know, or that have been in some
people that you've robbed from.
Yeah, or various types of conflicts. And we're bumping into each other, but it was a kind of a different vibe in prison. You ain't going nowhere, so you all make friends and forget the past sort of thing, which suited me down to the ground, because there was numerous people walking around that yard that we didn't like, or I didn't like. So anyway, I'm speaking to one of the lads that I've encountered, that I've known from small school, who was in for quite a horrible crime, and just enough. Yeah, I won't even talk about that now. But anyway, he's told me about this wing that they're on, this G wing. They're doing a RAP program on this wing, a rehabilitation. Now I've been telling him all my stories, and he was like, Bill, he said, come over, mate, come over. Not only that, there was the incentive of your cell was open for longer and all the rest of it. Initially, that was the incentive that I wouldn't be locked in my cell 23 hours a day. So I got over there, and it's quite funny. So heroin addicts, crack addicts, a whole range of crime, murderers, armed robbers, all the rest of it. The whole shebang's on there. There's every type of criminal on this wing. Some people, it's a part of their plan that they must do this course. Others volunteer. I volunteered. It wasn't something that I had to do. It was in the end something that I really needed and wanted to do. And it was the start of this journey. And that was 23 years old. And
so could you say, even though as bad as it was and everything happened, going to prison actually
saved my life.
Saved your life.
Saved my life. Wow. There's no doubt about it. And I have no doubt that, it seemed like a long time, but it could have been so much worse than that. I could have ended up in prison for maybe 15 years in some of the scenarios that I found myself in. And so that it was divinely perfect. And I can see that now. It was just the right amount of time. And I really did utilize that time. And I've become very serious about change whilst I was there. I knew initially going into prison that I would never sell drugs ever again. I knew that was one thing that was guaranteed. And that just looking around at
what a hassle though.
Yeah.
Going through all of that, you had to go through, like, it's just.
Yeah. Oh no, it was such an ordeal and very, very traumatic in so many ways. I mean, even this is a funny story. So, like, I'm new to the wing, and like I mentioned, you've got all of these different drug users, and security come and they do a raid on the wing, and they want to search everybody's cell. Now, I've only been on there a day. Now, I've cleaned my cell out. There's nothing in it. I've got like a couple of Adidas tracksuits hanging up in the cupboard. That is it. Anyway, so we're all locked in this room. Hawkins, and that was always my name growing up. So they called out Hawkins. Comes, he says, we found drugs in your cell. So I'm like, there's no way. There's no way you found drugs in my cell. And then he opened the Bible, when it was the only thing I left from the previous guy. And in the Bible, there was tin foil with this brown stuff burnt all in it. So someone's been smoking heroin. So I'm like, look, I do not smoke heroin. Take me for a piss test. Okay, fine. So I go down there and I pass the test. But that's how's your luck. I've been on there a day, and now, this has happened. But that stopped me getting a category D at some point. But anyway, I'll talk about the program. So it was a Narcotics Anonymous program, which is a 12 steps program, and I've still got all the writing upstairs. And it's very, very interesting to see how I presented all of these stories, and I was quite proud actually about all of that stuff that I just described. I was proud of it. It was. I told the story.
Ego, massive ego.
Because everybody wanted to hear that, and they, so I was presenting all of this horror in a way that it kind of, in a way that I was kind of proud of it, and some of the writing. I mean, so initially we write our life story, and then we break down all of these scenarios and stories, and then we find how we are accountable in all of this stuff that's taken place. And then we present that to each other in a group. And so this is where the work really starts. And so this is where my passion started to, we were sat in a circle with, like I mentioned, murderers, robbers, and whatever else. And we would sit in a circle and we would cry. Now, that stayed in that room. Nobody else in the yard was allowed to know about that, because there was some very, very big, strong, scary men crying their eyes out. But that changed something in me. And watching somebody describe the horror of their life, because there were some stories in that room that are the worst nightmares that you've ever heard. Some of the upbringings of these men and children, young men. And then,
the upbringing also just leads into.
Massively
leads
into this prison and into this horror, and it was
it was touching. It was just touching, and to hear the remorse and regret of what they have done. You know, it was a byproduct of, like you've just said, their upbringing has built them into this person, and they don't know. They believe that this is them. They don't know that there's the yeah, exactly that, and so that I know different to that now, and so that's where it started. And there was some guys would sit in their cells and they would cut themselves and just lay in there, and they'd be left, and I would look through their little doors, and they'd be just laying in a pool of blood in the bed, and it was really bad, and I started to care for people, and so I'm 6 months into this program now, and I'm taking it very seriously, and I want to help people. I really want to help people, and I truly care about people. That weren't who I was when I arrived here. I didn't give a shit about anything or anybody, myself mostly. But as I started to form some sort of love for myself in doing this inner work, all of a sudden that compassion was then shared with the people around me. And by a year in, I'd finished my program and was now like a mentor on the wing. Wow. So I'd stayed there for 18 months, and it
really was a start of your.
It really was, and I'd gone from being super proud of all of my wrongdoing to really, really upset about it all, and I could really see the flaws in
remorse and the energy of what you went through. It was like,
yeah,
I can feel it.
Yeah,
I can really feel what you're talking about there. I can relate to that.
Yeah,
it's like, I'm sure hopefully the audience can relate to Billy's story there as well. Just your past does put you in the future. There's a way of you got to learn, and you got to grow. And if you're not learning and growing from your past mistakes,
you're going to continue.
Yes,
you're going to continue. And so got to the I got to the end of that program, and in some cases I was transformed. And very, very keen to get out and live my life and to be a good human being. I'd done 2 years in prison, and because of that incident that I mentioned with the tin foil in the back of a Bible, no, they didn't allow me, because normally the last 6 months you can have in like open conditions where you go visit the family and all that, but because that they wouldn't allow me. But it was actually done me another favour, because I needed
a little bit of time.
I needed the full 2 years. If I'd have been out any earlier, there might have been a chance where, things might have gone the other way. So it was all perfect. And so I get home and I end up back with the girl that I was with before I went in. And of course now I'm reformed in some areas of my life. Again, it was on the surface though. There was still an infinite amount of work to be done, and I sort of believed that I might have conquered all of my addictions, and that because I had done this work, that life was really going to be different. And quite quickly, it went back to being how it was, and we started raving when I got home. We started going out to the parties and stuff. The music scene started to really become something beautiful for me.
Me too. Music scene for me was. But again, that's where I was doing a lot of cocaine and ketamine and pills, and that was my drug.
Right? Yeah, exactly that. And again, I got lost in the music a little bit, and the drugs sort of started to worm their way back in again. And so when I come home, I didn't have anything. I didn't have any money. I just had loads of debts from years ago. But anyway, we got through that, and I was adamant that I would never go back to selling drugs again. So I went and worked for my dad, just digging holes, and it was really my worst nightmare. But I was, focused and didn't want to go back to the old way of living, and stumbled across an opportunity to go. I mean, I tried various different things, stockbroker positions. I wanted to go and do something good and loads of money. I wanted to be successful. Stumbled across an opportunity to go get a job at a steel company, and I got that. Got the job, and I worked my ghoulies off for 7 or 8 months, and really, really give it everything. And so I was borrowing my mum's car to get to work, and literally had no money. And we moved into this house that we couldn't afford, and it was really, really demanding in terms of trying to provide and trying to meet not only my expectations, but the partner's expectations at the time. It was a scary place. And I left my job and started a business from home, just selling steelwork, which is what I did at work. And it went quite well. And within a year or two, we'd built a company that was pretty successful and doing quite good things. And it was kind of a miracle how it all happened. It just happened overnight and very quickly. And I found myself in a position where I was earning good money again, and it was legal, you know. But I was starting to take drugs again on a regular basis, and of course the cocaine started to creep back in slowly but surely, and then it started to get really quite nasty. And I was, you know, I would pop down the shop to get milk, end up sniffing cocaine, and end up in a lay-by.
Just go and get a pint of milk 3 days later.
It happened on numerous occasions, you know, and again, just sitting downstairs in the front room while she was upstairs with my daughter, just absolutely out of my head. And it started off on a Friday with a bottle of JD and a little bit, and it ended up, you know, slowly but surely, I ended up back in quite an uncomfortable situation where it was taking place far too much, and our relationship was getting smashed to pieces as a result of it. And anyway, so I left on a Saturday. I got up, and again, there's much more to the story, but I got up on this Saturday. I remember I packed my bag and I said, I'm going. Not only it was for all of us that I left, you know, because I had no control over myself anymore. I broke promises at time and time again. I would promise and absolutely mean it that I was not going to do it again. And 24 hours later, I'm there again. And to continuously make a promise and break a promise and it was just destroying me, because I really wanted to keep my word. And so that's what happened. And then the magic starts now. And I move out and I go and get a place. And so that I move to a flat in Newhall in Harlow. And as I walk in this place, and as I walk through the door, I get this absolutely freezing cold feeling come over me. And a voice in my head says to me, you're going to die here.
Really?
You're going to die here.
Wow.
Now, my drug use is so bad that the only way that I can interpret that is that I'm physically going to die here. So it was quite scary walking in that flat, and the only thing I had to be scared of was myself, because I didn't have any control over myself. It didn't matter what promises I made or how my best efforts were never good enough. You know, it didn't matter what I did or what I
just couldn't say no.
And I could not sit with how I felt, and that was, we'll come to that in a bit, but that was it. The bottom line was I was incapable of sitting in a room feeling how I felt. It was impossible. I could not do it.
No.
Whatever it was, whatever drug or behaviour. So the next 3 years at this point, so now I'm 25 now, and this is where the journey really starts to get horrific. And it gets very, very bad. So I spend 3 years in this place. Now don't get me wrong, there's still loads of good stuff happening as well. The business is doing pretty well. I started DJing and throwing some parties and all the rest of it. Again, we'll come to the party in a little bit later, but the role that I've kind of tried to play a lot in my life is putting myself in a place of like a center of attention. And, that comes from back to when I described that my friends were allowed to come around my house and have a party. I was put in exactly the same position. And I learned from that if I've got something that they want, that means that they're going to want to come. Yeah. And kind of the same thing's working now, but in a really beautiful way. It's a similar thing, but a completely different thing all at once. And
there's no ego now.
There's none of that. And I'm absolutely aware of everything that's taking place, So the 3 years now, and so in terms of spirituality, I missed a little bit from. So when I was 3 years old, if we were going to talk about where did
the essence?
Yeah, where did that come from? Where did that begin? And I remember being 3 years old, looking up at my ceiling and seeing this face in the ceiling and praying to God and praying to keep me safe. And praying for a particular bird. I used to ask for a peacock Now that actually carries its own sacred essence in itself.
Wow,
And there is a particular meaning behind that bird. It represents Christ consciousness. But of course, that doesn't mean much to me. It's only in the later years of life, when I look back at that memory, do I start to realize that divine essence, and it's not just me, we're all born with it, but I was in tune with that at a very, very young age. And of course, once the trauma starts coming, it starts bashing all of that, the divine essence, out of you.
Of course.
So that's my first memory in terms of anything. And we didn't bring it. No one told me about God. There was never a mention of that. That was in me. I knew at that age. That was already there. And that gets forgotten throughout my life. I'll come out the house in the morning or whatever. I always wore a hat because I was, covering myself. But you get in a fancy car with some nice clothes on, and people assume that life's good. And I'd started to gather that you could live a double life. Nobody would be none the wiser of the truth of what was going on inside of me, and that worked well in some cases. But of course, you're living an absolute lie. And the bottom line of that is that I was miserable doing what I was doing, and just so broken, but yet couldn't stop doing it. And so some things start to take place. And so a couple of things that happened throughout my life, and I'll give you a couple of examples of like spiritual occurrences that had taken place. So there was one particular time when I was laying in bed with my ex-partner, like the mother of my child, and we was in the dark, face to face on the pillows, and there was a donk on her head, quite loud, and we both sat up as we heard that donk, and I put the bedside lamp on, and what the hell was that? She said, I don't know, something just hit me on the head. So we're both baffled. So I'm like looking at the ceiling, we're looking at the bed, we're like, what's going on? So I'm like, look, the only possible explanation for this is that there's something in the room now that we cannot see. And as I finish my sentence, as that we cannot see, all of the toiletries in the bathroom go and just go flying, make this huge noise. Now everything in the bathroom has literally just gone everywhere. Now we've both gone under the covers.
Yeah, man.
Not thought too much of it, yeah. So we've how mad was that? Anyway, so now I'm in this flat, and these things are starting to happen, but I'm there on my own. And one particular night, and this was when things were starting to change for me. I was, like I mentioned, going to various practitioners, psychologists, and a lot of inner work was taking place in all of these scenarios. Cocaine Anonymous was a great platform for me to start investigating myself, my story, and then to be able to communicate that with like an audience, for example. It wasn't enough for me to get to where I am now, but it certainly was a fantastic stepping stone for my transformation. So I get up for a wee one night. Well, actually, no, I'm standing in my kitchen and I can feel this breathing on my neck. Now I'm starting to become aware of spirit, and the concepts of maybe like entities attaching to us and things like this. Yeah. So it all sort of come, as my awareness started to develop about these possibilities, these things then started occurring actually in my life. So that then I was able to see that, this wasn't just something I was hearing. This stuff happens. This is real, this stuff. And so this one particular occasion, standing in my kitchen, and I can literally feel something breathing on my neck. Strange feeling, keep looking back and I can feel it. And so I played this, I remember getting in bed, and on the days when I wasn't taking drugs, I would play meditation music and have candles and crystals in my bed. This was just something that I started doing naturally. I would lay in bed and hold the crystals and just beg for dear life, please save me. And a night when I wasn't taking drugs, that was a good night. That was an achievement for me to not take drugs today. So yeah, I get in bed and I get up for a wee, and it's got something grabbing me around the throat, and this is not a joke, and I'm not exaggerating in any sense. I am being strangled in my bed. So as that's released off of me, there is this loud scratching on my door, and then the loudest footsteps run down my landing. Bum, 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 bum. Covers over the head again.
Scared your boy.
Exactly that. So
cool.
So that was one occurrence, and then after that I had big crosses put up in my place, and they looked pretty cool, but they served that they was for a reason. People used to ask, why have you got them up? And I didn't even bother explaining why, because people would think I was crackers, but it didn't matter. It didn't matter what they thought. I had them there for a reason. I had prayers written on the walls in Latin that were like a form of protection, and all little things like the tattoos that I was having. I had like a protection tattoo, which was from Thailand. All of these little things started to take place.
So everything's unraveling.
But I'm unaware of what's going on in terms from a spiritual point of view.
Naturally.
But it's just happening. It's just happening as a part of the process. And so what happens? So I take a trip. Actually, I go to Thailand. I book a month in Thailand by myself. And I remember the day before I went, I'm actually absolutely petrified. And I thought, what am I
doing a month on my own in Thailand?
What am I going to do? And so I went there with great intentions, and the idea was it was going to be a spiritual holiday, and it was in some respects, but mostly, I ended up drinking, girls on the beach. I didn't drink. I think I DJ'd at a party or something there, and so there was a little bit of both going on. But it was really, really good for me. Come back with a clearer head. Can still continue doing what I was doing, and so now I'm in Cocaine Anonymous, and so that I was able to get some time drug free, and so I got 6 months, and then I'd relapse, and then I got 3 months, and then I'd relapse. So now I'm putting a sensible amount of time between me and drugs, but eventually I would go back to the drugs again. But it was getting more and more painful. The letdown of having 6 months no drugs and then taking it was devastating. And then I'd end up in this victim stance, and feeling very sorry for myself, and I'm never going to get better, and all of this, and then I'd end up back in the rooms again and getting clean, and it was heartbreaking to go in that. Yeah, it was heartbreaking to go in that room as well and tell everybody I've relapsed. I did it countless times. I'd get me little thing. Me 30 days, 40 days, and then I'd come in again. And you have to be honest. A couple of times I considered lying, and I just didn't have it in me. I had to just tell the truth. And so I must have got up more than anybody else and said, relapsed. And in the end, you think there's no helping me. So towards the end of all of this horror, I had another relationship with a girl that didn't work out. And I remember we went, just as an example of a spiritual occurrence or an alien occurrence, we was on the balcony and we was watching a program about the universe. And so that I'm starting to become interested in this stuff, just naturally. I want to know about life, and I want to know what I am, who I am, and discover the origin of that, and what is going on. Why am I going through this pain? What is it? And so that my interest was just divinely guided to exploring the idea of what the universe might be and how that reflects into what we are and how that plays out in our lives. And anyway, we go out on the balcony after watching this very, very interesting documentary, and there's some woods over the back of my house. And so I'm with this girl, and this light literally just comes out of the woods, and it's not very far from us. It's right in front of us, and it is shining like it was a star. It was so bright and it was so close. Just appeared. Wow. So I've said to this girl, look at that. And then it goes, boom, splits into two, and it kind of made that noise as it, boom. Oh. So we're like, what? And then all of a sudden, one of them goes, and just shoots off and disappears into the sky. And a few seconds later, the other one goes, and follows after it. Now we're blown away. I can imagine that. Now, I've just watched this documentary, and there was no mistake that I'd just watched this documentary. Yeah, two of us see it, and the same as in the other scenario when I was with the mother of my child, she had encountered this donk on the head and seen the thing. So these things were happening in front of people as well. I wasn't a lunatic, and they all vouched for me as well. I'm not making this stuff up. And this stuff happened, and so that we're blown away. And then we've gone in, and now the occurrence of numbers is starting to happen on a regular basis: 11, 11, 13, 13, 3, 3, 3, da 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 da. And as we walk in from that, it's 11, 11 at night. So we've watched this program about the universe. We've seen a spaceship take off and split into two and disappear into the thing. And then we walk in and then it's 11, 11. We're like, what? Yeah, so it's like, so this stuff's helping me. This helping me. I'm starting to believe, because I'm seeing and experiencing things happen. I I can't question these things anymore because I'm physically experiencing them and seeing them. So there was no doubt in this now. Now I'm becoming very interested because I'm experiencing and seeing these things for myself. And but yeah, so we split up with this girl, and again it was another little blow, and I ended up back on drugs again, and so on and so forth. So we get to the end of this horrible period, and there was a guy that had been living underneath me for some time, and he'd been living underneath me for about a year. And my drug taking shenanigans, God only knows what that must have sounded like from down below, because in these flats you could hear a pin drop. So never considered that anyone else might even be disturbed by my, I'm pacing up and down at 3, 4 in the morning every day, like running a bath at 6 in the morning, 5 in the morning, and not getting in the bath, then running a shower, then flushing the toilet while I'm sniffing a line so he can't hear it. Just loads of stuff. But anyway, this guy comes and knocks on my door one day, and because I've been playing meditation music at night, and he knocks on the door and he asks me about the music. He said, "What's that music that you play at night? I really like the sound of it." And so we start talking. Now I'm absolutely broken at this point, and I begin crying at the door to this complete stranger, and I say, "Come in," and we sit, and I just tell him, I'm going to die. I'm dying. I can't stop taking drugs. I'm sorry if I've been disturbing you, but this is what's going on up here. I'm in a lot of trouble, and I can't see a way out of it. And
that for you though, being that honest and that raw with someone that you don't even know.
Yeah,
that must have been.
It was
quite something.
It was a start of a journey for me. And rather than being judged or because I judge myself immensely, and to have not received that type of judgment, the judgment that I held for myself, I was only expecting that because I was so used to my own judgments of self that I would only assume that you're going to judge me in the same way. And so that kind of showed me that wasn't the case. And we had this really, really beautiful conversation and become very, very close friends. And I still continued to take drugs for some time, but something started to happen, and it was very, very powerful, and to the point where it actually become near on impossible for me to take drugs anymore. I had them on the side, I could see them, and I wanted them, but I couldn't get there. And there was a force field.
A barrier put in front of you.
And what it was is my fear of disappointing this person that cares about me. What you was going to say. And he's below me, so his bedroom was below mine. And because this complete stranger had showed me this level of compassion and non-judgment, it wasn't for me in the beginning. It was for him. And that's why he was some sort of divine angel that was put in my path, because I cared about him.
What he was thinking.
And more to the point, this person cares about me, and he doesn't want this for me. And I don't want this for me either, but yet I'm the one with the voices that tells me that I should be doing that, or that, this desire or this extreme urge for these drugs. And having this person down below, it just made, and when I did manage to get the drugs up my nose, I'd be absolutely petrified that then he would know that I've done it. And on a couple of occasions, I did manage to take drugs all night, and he would knock on the door. And I couldn't answer it. No. I'm not answering the door, and he would bang, 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 open the door, open the door, open the door. So in the end, I had to open the door, and I would be a wreck. And he'd beg, "Please stop, please stop this now. You've got to stop, mate. Look what you're doing to yourself." And it was, if anything, I resented him. Yeah. Because now you're getting in the way of what I'm doing, and you're making it worse for me than what it was. And I needed that. I really needed that. And this person's, makes me very emotional just talking. And every time I describe his part in my journey, it always makes me very emotional. And in ways he doesn't even know. Yeah. And well, he does, because I've told him several times. And we have this.
In contact.
Yeah. And we have this really beautiful relationship moving forward, and I start to progress, and then I start to have longer periods without drugs, and I begin to flourish in ways that I never knew were possible, and he sees that, and it was just beautiful. And I remember one of the conversations we had at the end, I remember him sitting, look, I'm gonna cry. I remember sitting down and him saying to me, "Oh, you have changed my life. He said, witnessing what you have been through and the person that I see sitting here today," he said, "it is beyond inspirational.
Wow.
And just your existence has changed my life forever." Wow. And we're both sitting crying because I'm like, you don't understand what you've done for me.
Yeah.
And we just crossed paths, and he'd been living underneath me for a year, and we'd never even said hello. Normally, because I was scarpering up the stairs to get into my flat so I could take my drugs, and never even considered saying hello. I didn't care. I just needed to get up and get high and whatever. That was a life-changing moment for me, and it gave me hope, and it gave me, wow, it was just so powerful. And he didn't even know what he was doing. He didn't even know the work that he was doing. It was beyond.
It was a healer, without knowing he's a healer.
It was beyond this world. It was beyond this world, and it was all done so so blasé, without, you know, and both of us had a very profound effect on each other without even realizing there was no intention, and it just happened. And wow, yeah, it was really special. So yeah, so now I'm not taking drugs anymore, and really starting to connect, to feel, how do I feel? And it's not very nice, you know. So now I'm doing some really deep inner work, and I'm beginning to realize now that now I'm not taking drugs, that because I always thought the drugs are the reason my life is so terrible, and they are what makes me feel this way. Yeah, I cannot stop taking them. So if I stop taking drugs, I'm going to be better. I'm going to feel better. My problems will disappear with the drug addiction. That was what I believed, and so I was striving to not stop taking. I was striving to stop taking drugs in order to feel good again. And when I stopped taking drugs, I realized that they were simply a mask for how I truly felt. And the reason that I took them is because I could not sit with how I truly felt. And at which point then I knew that it had to be a journey inside. Yeah. I had to look inside to start finding some answers. And of course, I'd already done all of that work previous. So I had a good starting point. But now I'm starting to grow, and I'm starting to see it all a little bit differently. And so what happens next? So we're about 6 months in, and I'm still having some suicidal thoughts. I'm having thoughts about killing myself, and so I had a couple of really bad knockdowns, dips, and I was able to I was not taking drugs, but I was pretty messed up. And in the end, it was getting to the point where I don't take drugs anymore. Yet I'm still having suicidal thoughts. I'm still depressed. I'm still terrified of everything. Like, this has got to end, you know. And it got to a point actually where I thought to myself, if this is life, I don't want it. And then I'm thinking various ways of killing myself, you know, hang myself, should I cut my wrists? Well, none of them ideas are appealing to me really. But then the idea of continuing to live feeling this way was also unattractive. So you're torn between death and life, and all things in between. And so then the opportunity comes a little bit later. So this is the mindset that I'm currently in, what I just described, and my friend offers DMT. So for me, I'm in a place where I don't drink, I don't smoke, you know.
Now you've gone completely the other way.
Substances are a no-go for us, you know, or for me, particularly where I was doing my thing in Cocaine Anonymous. Substances of any kind, we're not having that, you know. And I was all about that. I was very, very strict in that. So when the opportunity comes to take the DMT, which is dimethyltryptamine, it's a substance. It's the fabric of life relies on this. You know, it's in the plant kingdom. It is the molecule of the plant kingdom, and in fact, is responsible probably for life could not exist the way that we know it without this molecule.
When we die, it actually gets released. When we're born and when we die, it actually gets released at that moment.
Correct. And there's also a cycle down the vertebrae of our spine where DMT will make its way up and down the spine. I think it's down the spine. So it's 33 vertebrae, but that's with the moon cycle. The DMT makes its way down. It's a very, very small excretion, but it maneuvers down. But anyway, our dream world and all of that relies on this substance, which is naturally produced in our brains. But even knowing all of that, and so now because I'm hearing about this substance and the wonders of it, I'm still very skeptical and a little bit scared with the idea that knowing how I am with drugs,
what it might turn into.
This could end up just another avenue of chaos. And so that I am very wary about it, and I decline the offer. My friend offers it, and I say no. Now, 3 months down the line, my mental health is not getting no better, and and like I mentioned earlier, I've got this business which is doing pretty well, but it carries a whole burden of stress with it, and so that there was a lot of stuff going on there with that, and in the end, like I said, if this is how I'm going to feel for life, then you know what, I've got nothing to lose. So I rang my friend and I said, you know what, come round and show me what this stuff is, and if it helps, great. If not, okay. I've tried exactly that. And so he comes round and presents me with this yellow powder. So it's a synthetic DMC. It's quite a nasty chemical process that goes into extracting it in this particular way. But anyway, we smoke this pipe. Well, I smoke this pipe. Now, I don't know what I'm doing. I just breathe in this smoke. A lot of smoke, may I add. And I disappear. I don't disappear, but I disappear as far as I'm concerned into nothing. And then the way back was like a roller coaster in bright orange colours, and then thudding back into the body. And as I opened my eyes, the room was like a bright orange colour, and I'm scared now. And I'm like, how long is this going to last? And he's like, it's all right, 10 minutes, you're going to be good. So I'm up now and I'm walking around and I'm like, fuck, and the room looks crazy and I can see the energy moving everywhere, and I'm like looking, I'm looking at my hands and I can see it was mind blowing, and it wears off and I feel great and clear, and I don't know, I can't put I couldn't describe what the change. Something was different.
Well, Mike, have you heard about the story of Mike Tyson? He smoked DMT and he literally transformed. He come out and he said, "I never want to hurt another person again."
Well, this is it. It was a very, very. Something clicked. Something clicked, and so I'm not saying that happens for all people, but it happened for me. It happened for me, and I felt good afterwards, like I just said. So it was like, in any of my experiences with any type of substance, generally if there was a high, there's always an excruciating low associated with it. This was different. And I'm sure if you abuse that substance, there's going to be a horrific low with it, but it's never really been that way for me. And so now we start exploring with it a little bit, and on a weekly basis, I'm smoking a bit of it and kind of making like a sort of a ceremony, as you might say. Not really knowing what I'm doing, but I know that.
How old were you at this stage?
So that's done 30. I've just turned 32. So that's probably like must be like 4 years ago, I suppose. And yeah, so I'm having these small moments with myself, but there was an intention, and again I was unaware of what all of this even was, or how essential an intention is in any movement.
We'll go into that. It's really powerful.
Yeah, so having these sort of like small ceremonies, and then a few friends have come over, and this is over the space of about 6 months, and so I'm playing with it a little bit. I took myself to some very, very scary places with that. And a couple of times smoked it when I probably shouldn't have. I'd had a bad day and come and smoked some DMT, and
not even thinking about what you're doing.
But I had a really, really bad experience, and that was the reflection of, I was using that in a recreational way as if trying to escape myself, and that's not how this stuff is. It's used to discover oneself for sure, but when you're trying to escape yourself, or it's like at the end of a hard day when you need a beer, for example, that type of behaviour is escaping the way you feel, and when you try and apply that in any substance, I believe that you're going to get a slap wrist, and a couple of times I did get a slap wrist, and I scared myself a little bit. So then I was having a conversation with a friend about what I've been going through, life in general, just general chit chat, and then sort of stumbled upon the topic of DMT, and we was having a bit of a chat about that. There was a female friend that I used to book DJs for at some parties and stuff, and she invited me to Eindhoven to take part in an 11-day retreat with various ancestral medicines. So it was bufo, which is the venom of the toad that lives in the Sonora Desert, and then you've got the ayahuasca, which is the origin of the Amazon jungle, Cambo again, which is Amazon jungle medicine. So this never heard of any of these things before. Rapé as well, which is the tobacco snuff. So she's telling me all about all of this stuff. I don't know what it is. Never heard of it. Never heard of it, but it sounds pretty interesting. And based on the experiences that I had recently with the DMT, I was more than intrigued. I was like, let's go. I'm ready for this. So I go to this place, and well, this is where this journey really begins. So I go to this retreat in Eindhoven, completely open-minded. I had some expectations, I would say. I suppose when you're going for an experience like this with unfamiliar territory, it's natural that you might go on the internet and try and do some research and try and gain an understanding of what it is that you're doing. I didn't do too much of that, but what I did hear is from certain people, stories about how you would drink this medicine and you would basically be shitting and sicking all night, unconscious, in another world. So when I heard that, I was a little bit nervous. I hadn't really even discussed bufo or cambo with anybody. I just went and did it. But the ayahuasca, people had told me some stories about it, and I was a little bit nervous, to say the least. And I thought, God, I was still going to go and do it, but I had an expectation based on what I'd been told from others.
And when you got there, was it a totally different experience?
Yeah, it was completely different, and it made me wait. And so I'll describe. I mean, so on the first day, so we did 3 cambo. I did bufo every day. On one of the days, I did 2. So I did 12 bufos in 11 days. Ayahuasca every day for 11 days. I think I had one night off. And cambo 3 times, one in the beginning, one in the middle, and one at the end. So it was a very, very intense 11 days, and an absolute concoction of these ancestral medicines. Mind blowing, absolutely mind blowing. So the first bufo that I took, 5-MeO DMT. So it's the rawest form of this molecule that you're going to get, and again presented with this pipe, and I smoke. With no expectations. And as I breathe this smoke in, the room starts to shudder. And I'm only halfway through. And I continue telling me, keep going. So I keep going.
It hits you straight away as soon as you touch it, right?
Yeah. And so now the goal is to get to around 14 seconds and then hold that smoke. And these guys will hold your nose so that nothing can come out until you basically, and then they'll lay you down. That didn't really do that for me. I shot so quickly to the source of all things.
To the absolute.
And it's very, very difficult to describe in human language what it all looks like, but everything becomes one, which is, of course, why we describe us as a species as one. All of creation comes from one source, and so that there is no separation. And if you believe you're separate to anything, that is the mistake that you're making. We are of the same source, and it doesn't matter what skin color you've got. But of course, immediately, when I say the amount of information that is being downloaded in seconds is mind-boggling. There is the realization of that there is no separation between us, no matter what you look like, what skin color you've got, whether you're wealthy or whether you're poor. There is nothing that divides us. And the ideas that I've got about myself, the expectations, this lie that I'm living about, telling the world that I'm a wealthy, successful man, but actually the truth of that is a broken, scared, individual. You know, all of these things were going ching, 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 ching. I could see everything. I'm free. I was free in that moment, and I'm not lying. It was like chains had been locked off me, and the intelligence that I had acquired in 20 minutes, I was
lifetime.
I was no longer the same person. It all made sense, and I remember screaming with joy, crying.
Yeah, it's like
I cannot laughing.
Epiphany.
Laughing.
Well, when we went away and redone it when we went away, I couldn't stop laughing myself. I literally, everything just was like this big, I just become a big kid.
It was just so liberating, and you know, like, and it's all the mind. That's all we're doing is rather than building new constructs on our ideas, it's dismantling the ones that we've got, the current ideas and the current perceptions we hold, and
the programming we're given.
That's it.
Growing up, program.
That's it. Bombarded with information from the telly, from the news, from our parents, from school. It's coming from all angles, you know, and it's all false. And don't get me wrong, there's a lot of beautiful information. I'm not saying that everything in the world is false, but you know, a lot of what we learn growing up is wrong. Bottom line, and it's just all clear as daylight to me now. Yeah, boom, clear as daylight, and I'm crying, and all of a sudden. Because I have been in pain for a very, very long time, and that, and it was perfect, and I just see it, the perfection in it, and it happened very quickly. I see who I was, what I was, why I came to this earth, what I am beyond this body. My consciousness exists beyond this body. When I leave this vessel, my awareness of existence still remains. I never die. This realization, I never die. It's all a lie. Like everything that I've believed about myself is not true. And it was just fantastic.
Yeah.
Fantastic. And
we are spirit having a human experience.
Exactly. And you know, it's one thing to say or hear that. It's another thing to really experience
it. Yeah.
It's just
it's absolutely. Everyone's got to go through their own path to discover that.
Yeah, and you know what? It's not about when you're ready to experience that. You will.
It comes to you.
You will, and we've got forever. By the way, you know, we are infinite beings. So there is the construct of time is just something that is placed in this reality. It works well for us, you know, and the construct of time is fantastic for the reality bit. In some cases, well, it doesn't exist. So when we go beyond that, we've got forever, and we've got many, many opportunities to live. And you know, some people are not going to grasp these concepts in this life, but you know, they will die, and they will leave the body, and in that moment, they will realise the truth.
I don't ever want to come back. I've been through hell. That's it. This is my final time on it. I'm doing my divine work now, so I'm coming home.
Yeah. So
after nearly dying 5 or 6 times, one more time, that's it. I'm going home.
Yeah. So
what else happened on that trip that gave you something else that you took from there that was like, do you know what? Now I know I need to become a healer. Was it that trip that
it started then? It started then, and so like I described some expectations that I had for the ayahuasca, and that was of course because I'd been listening to other people's opinions on it, and actually it was quite funny. The people that had been telling me all about it had never actually done it, you know. So they're probably looking on the internet and then telling me about something that they don't even understand.
You can't tell someone to do something unless you've done it.
Exactly that, and which is why traveling through all of these experiences in life gives me the opportunity to really connect to many individuals that are going through any suffering. Same concept. But so we start. So the first ceremony with the ayahuasca, we sit down and we drink. Now I'm waiting for something ridiculous to happen, and the anticipation's horrible. You're waiting. I mean, you're waiting to start passing. Like, you know, you think you're gonna just, you know, pass out, and then you're going to start pooing and being sick, and that's kind of what I was waiting for in the beginning, just petrified, thinking, oh my god, when's it going to kick in? And nothing happened. Absolutely nothing. So I'm like, a bit later they ask for the second cup. So I'm like, yes please, nothing's happening. Nothing. So I'm naturally, I'm like, this is shit. Yeah, that was what I thought, because I was expecting fireworks. So I'm like, nothing. And particularly, I've just had that experience with Bufo earlier. Now that was kind of what I was expecting. But this,
on a larger scale.
yeah, but this, nothing. So I was disappointed. To tell the truth, I was disappointed. And then the second day,
just a weak plant.
no, well, listen. So yeah, so we it takes some time. So I sit 4 ceremonies. Now I'm sitting 11 ceremonies, so I've sat 4 now. Nothing's happened. Now we're doing Bufo in the day as well, so I'm having profound experiences by day. But nighttime, we're drinking this medicine. Nothing's happening. I'm disappointed because there's a lot of I'm excited. I wanted, and people are having some profound experiences in the room, but for me, nothing's happening. I'm thinking, but I'm being sick, but I'm not getting any of these visions or information. Anyway, 6th and 7th day, all of a sudden, something starts to happen. I remember being on my front, rocking, and all of a sudden these colours, I can feel it. I can feel it's working. No, nothing's changed. The medicine's been the same throughout. But what's happened is the plant is like any relationship. We're getting to know each other. It's working its way through my body. Its spirit is working through. We're establishing a common ground of each other, So I'm getting to know the medicine. The medicine's getting to know me. Now we start doing some work. And so it took a while for this process to start happening. And that is just the way that I see it anyway. So like I say, the 6th or 7th day, I remember standing at the end of my bed and just an absolute connection between the front of my head there and the sky. Something shining into my head, and I am at the end of my bed. And then I had my eyes closed and I was stood in front of myself, and I had my hood up, and I was faced with myself, really looking quite dark and angry in my reflection. The shadow, yeah. And around me are these women dancing with these like in a tribe, they wear these straw bottoms, and they're all dancing around me. So I had this dark figure of me staring back into my eyes with all of these ladies dancing around me. And all of a sudden, the shadow starts to separate, and it's like the spirit emerges from this figure and starts to fall away. And as it does, this was the darkness inside of me falling out, and it's profound because the vision occurs, and I fall to the floor and I sob and I cry, and I'm on the floor screaming, absolutely sobbing and crying. I'm dying. And going back to when I said I would die in 17 Soper Square, I died, but not physically.
It was you.
It was
your ego.
It was a spiritual. It was a night of the dark night of the soul, yes. and so that a death occurred. It was a spiritual death, and so this is taking place.
You was transformed.
Precisely. And forever and ever, and so that happens, and now I understand, and it was cool. So lots of purging, lots of being sick involved, and just devastating. When I say the emotion running through me,
when you've been through that much pain and trauma and everything that you went through. It builds up in the layers and layers of your body. So I can imagine that plant just literally let you release and clear that energy. And so there's so much to do, because of course people ask the question, why do you keep doing it? Like surely if it is what you say it is, then like 2 or 3 times should be sufficient. You should be healed. Of course, that's a very naive understanding of what healing even is. It depends on how deep your work is going to be, right?
Yeah. And of course, I'm not saying like, listen, an individual will go through this process as much as they need to until we're in a consistent state of happiness. Of course, life's always going to be ups and downs, but
it's how you deal with them.
until we're in a place where we're comfortable in whatever life brings, then that's when I would say that you can now just live. But yeah, anyway, so I go through that process, and then towards the end of that, and there were so many, and that was the other thing as well. There was the broadest spectrum of individuals at this place.
All over the world.
Yeah, and some of the people, and of course, because I had a specific type of person that
would be going.
yeah, and there was a particular group of people that I would only associate with in life. If they dressed this way or da 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 da. So there was every type of person there, and I fell in love with all of them. Don't get me wrong, there was a couple that I was a little bit unsure about, or that pissed me off, or said the wrong thing, or whatever. But it was all actually positive because they rumbled me in a certain way. But anyway, there was all of these bizarre people, and by the sixth day, I'm understanding the truth of what we are and who we are, and that like we are family. It doesn't we're family, and what we're doing right now together is sacred and special, and it was just so magnificent. And then I remember on like the last day, towards the last day, it was quite daunting. It was like a golden rain coming down on me. I remember standing up against the wall with my arms crossed, and you are the one. So I went through a quite bizarre moment with this. Now, of course, when you have this spiritual awakening, you can perceive it in a lot of different ways. Now,
symbols, like symbolism, is one people take things.
Yeah, and for me, I seriously did question whether I was actually God, like the God of all gods, or whether I was Jesus reincarnated, or I was coming up with very bizarre ideas. And of course, I'm looking externally now, because I am. I am God, but that doesn't mean that I'm above.
No, we're all the same.
Exactly.
And just because we're doing this work does not mean that we're better than anyone else.
For sure.
Never ever. If anything, it puts us more on par with people than anything.
Yeah.
We can relate, we can talk, and so we're not saying it's like, I'm doing this because I am better than you. It's no, we're doing this because we've had our path. Our time's now come for us to do our work
and to experience the truth. And so I'm interpreting this information. You are the one. I think am I Neo at the Matrix, who's now waking up? Because it's a lot of information you're receiving, and you can perceive it in a million different ways. And so that it's about slowly integrating this information into reality and then grounding it. But yeah, I didn't know what that meant. You are the one. You are the one. You are the one. And I'm standing there. It felt like a very heavy thing. You are the one. And I'm standing, scratching my head, and I'm thinking, what does that mean? What does that mean? And you know what? For me now, the way that I see it, it was telling me, you are the one who can do this. Come on. Yeah. Come on. This is your life.
You're the only one that can do it.
Yeah, you're like I had a big role. I've got a big role, and it's not a responsibility. It's more of an honor. But it's you are the one. Come on. And I needed to hear that. Yeah. Because we need to be acknowledged sometimes and to be told, and and just to get in that voice. And so I didn't really know how to interpret that information at the time. And I remember Pierre, who was a French guy, coming standing around me, and it was really special. So I did lots of different bufos. I did a double dose in one of them, and took myself beyond anything that I can describe, and had some very, very terrifying experiences towards the end of it, and some very, very interesting realizations and concepts were presented to me. The idea of infinite reality, and that one person may have infinite selves running simultaneously, and our choices and decisions maneuver us from different selves, and that we may die in one reality, continue living in another, but be completely unaware that we've even died. Because of course, if I was to just drop out of my body now, but then wake up in exactly the same body in another reality, I would be. It's like going to sleep at night, and then in the morning you open your eyes. you're in the same place, you think, but you're not.
Oh,
Yeah, so all of these concepts, and I'm not saying that is the way things are, but these were ideas.
Your thoughts and
my mind expanded, bang, and I was able to see many different possibilities of how life and the universe may work. Not saying that is how it works, but they were just ideas of how things could be. And all of a sudden, I went from being pretty blind to just blown open. And that took some time.
Yeah, of course, no process.
Oh, yeah. So coming back from that retreat was again a very, very scary and lonely process, because I had a lot of ideas about life and about myself now that did not fit in the world around me. Of course, I come back absolutely blown away, trying to describe my experiences.
Unless you've actually been experienced, no one's going to understand it.
And they're thinking I'm crackers. And then, of course, like...
Lock him up.
I just thought, like, coming back, and even this is once, like as I changed as well, I expected everybody around me to change, and so that made my love conditional, so it was like, I have transformed myself and I've done so much hard work. Like, I find it actually disrespectful that you still drink and take drugs. That was then, that was kind of like, so all of a sudden now my friend circle was non-existent. I didn't really have any friends. Everything got cut off. I went into a very lonely place with it. I didn't know where to go. I didn't have no one to talk to. It was another scary moment of the awakening, being blown open, but still very lonely with it. And I didn't have what we have now. And this is part of why we've created what we've created, is so that people can have this experience and they've got the circle, and they've got, a large number of people that are going to understand, support, and really be there for us and it's for me as well, as much as it is everybody else. So so that was that, and then there was so that was the start of the journey. And
so how many retreats have you been on now?
Lots. So I was going every 3 months to Eindhoven for about a year and a half. I went. Wow. So I went a lot, spent a hell of a lot of money. But you can't put a price really on
what it gives you.
No. I mean, I was more than happy to sit and just sniff cocaine endlessly, So this is beyond.
This is medicine.
Yeah.
This is taking you to do your inner work and grow as a person. And grow as a healer.
Yeah. There's no comparison. So then we wanted to sort of go and experience this stuff in the jungle. Well, I've cut off a little bit of part of the story actually, and we'll go back, because then I was introduced after my first experience. The guy that I mentioned earlier that lived underneath me, he come, and so I was born on the 13th, and 13 has been a number that guides me quite a lot in life. And he come and said that there's a shamanic drumming circle on the 13th. Would you like to come? Well, I was compelled to go because of the number 13. It was actually quite inconvenient, but I made sure that I went, and I got there, and I met this guy, and I won't say his name on the camera, but he's not that he's a very, very special man in my life for the following reasons. And I walked into this place, and he described to me in detail some things that he shouldn't know. And he said to me something about a girl, and about this guy, and about this, and about that, and it threw me. And it made me cry. And me and my friend was sat crying. I'd literally just walked through the door. I was mind boggled. I've never met this dude. How do you know that? And of course now
we both work.
We both know him, yeah. And
that's an amazing man.
Yeah, incredible. And of course, and his influence in this moment of my life was much bigger than. Well, actually, I think he knows, because he knows everything. Yeah. And he knew what he was doing anyway, and every word that he said and everything, it was always in the right moment, and it was always what I needed to hear. It was perfect. And so that happened, and then he took me outside and told me about my ancestry. Basically, there's a lot of dark magic around my family line, and obviously it's inherited with the vessel. Unfortunately for me, it was going to be my job to break the cycle of what's been going on for however long. And So I'm receiving this information. So and I can't disagree or disregard what this man's saying because he's just proven that he knows. He's just proved it. So there's no way that I can dismiss or, like I said, incredible. So then we sat down and in the afternoon, it was quite nice. I was made the centre of attention for the next 2 or 3 hours in the afternoon. And so they got up and they'd done this kind of ceremony for me, and they sat me in the middle, and I had to look into this black glass. And one stood behind me with a big spear, and they had like bear furs on, and lots of drums around me, and all dancing around me. And he said, "You might feel something, you might not." So I said, "Okay, fine, I'm down for whatever." So I'm sat looking at this thing, doing their thing, and I'm waiting for something. I'm not feeling anything. He said, "Do you feel anything?" I said, "No." "Oh, okay." He said, "No, don't." He said, "That doesn't mean anything. Don't worry." I'm all right, cool. Sat back down. Then they're doing healing, so they're bringing people up for a healing in the middle. So someone comes up, and then he'll call a couple of people up to come and do a healing on various people, and he calls my name. So I'm like,
wasn't healing yet.
"Yeah, well, I don't know what I'm going to do." And he was like, "You do know what you're going to do. Believe me, you know." He said, just stand behind her and put your hands in whatever way you want to do it. Just go with the flow." I'm like, all right. There's about 50 people in a circle, so I'm petrified. Stood behind this woman, and everyone's banging the drums. Very powerful. So and like he said, it just happens, and I kind of just start moving in a certain way, and I'm sending love to this woman, and just, I don't know, just pushing the love that I have in my heart to her, and anyway, they stop. I sit down, and she comes over to me at the end, and she cries, and she says, "I have never ever been touched by anything like that. That was incredible." So I'm like, "What? What do you mean?" Like, she was like, she said, "I've been around for a very long time." She said, "You have got a gift. Believe me." I needed to hear that.
Oh, wow.
I needed to hear that. Hearing that. Yeah, same. Hearing that awoke me, and I started to realize, I am powerful, and I have got this gift, and like, she felt it, so it's real, and it was a confirmation of what was happening for me. And anyway, stayed in contact with this lady ever since, and it's been a beautiful thing, and started attending these workshops on a regular basis, and he would always have something fantastic to say to me, and it was always so relevant, and he would always get me up at the right moment and get me doing something when I felt like I wanted to be doing something. And I never got left sitting there like out of place or feeling like I was insignificant. Yeah, I just felt completely at home, and I felt like I really had something valuable to contribute to this place, and that was all I wanted, was to be loved and to be accepted for who I was, and to be valued as a human being, and to actually be doing something good for others. It was the whole package was wonderful. So when I left that healing when I left that healing, I cried for a whole week. I laid on my sofa. I remember going to work, and of course, because I didn't feel anything, nothing profound was happening apart from what was going on. So you just assume that not much has happened. But I remember sitting at my desk at work and not feeling very good at all. And obviously, I've got a bit of a persona in the office where I'm the boss and all the rest of it. So I'm not going to sit and start crying at my desk, because that's not going to go down. Well, I actually would now, but not then. And I go home and I cry so deeply for, like I say, 4 or 5 days. I'm wrapped in a blanket, playing all the tunes that I now play, crying and crying and crying. So I spoke to him and I said, "Wow. The release that come from that," and it just blew my mind, opened my mind. So that drumming thing happened with that particular group of people, plus the medicine work all at once.
All into it.
Bang! There it is. There's your new life. It's done. And
here's your calling.
Exactly that. And then that.
Welcome to your purpose.
Exactly that. And it's been an absolutely wonderful journey. So continued, and we went on some trips, and so then I meet Jenna. She invites me to an event, And I remember sitting in the front room and I get a really cold shudder come over me. I'm aware that means yes, go for it. You get that cold feeling come over you, like someone invites you to a party or to an event, for example, and you get that freezing cold feeling come over you. In my experience, that means you better get there. So I knew when I got that feeling, I said, I'm there. I've just had me cold shudder. I'm there. Don't worry about it. So I took my daughter, my mum, my auntie Tracy to this event. Jenna was sort of facilitating and hosting this event, and she met the whole family all at once, and I had my eye on her, I suppose, and of course I just had this very profound and fast awakening, and I liked her, man, and she was cool, and she was doing the spiritual thing, and I was watching her, and I thought, I like this girl, and one thing,
she's a powerful woman.
Yeah, and it's been a absolutely mind blowing almost 2 years, and so what happens next? So we go on a retreat together. Jenna takes her first bufo with us, and that's an absolutely mind boggling experience. Yeah, so that was our first retreat, and then we went and chilled in Amsterdam for a bit and relaxed, and it was nice. And then we booked a trip to go to Colombia. So we went to Bogota with the same organisation that I'd been doing my European retreats with, and oh wow, what a trip! And this is where the real dream, presented itself. So a lot of work had gone in prior to this moment. So we've gone on this trip for 12 days, I think it was, but we had 7 ceremonies with various maestros or shaman or whatever you want to call them. But they come from different families. So we had a different family every night. I think one or two families did a couple of ceremonies, but generally it was a different energy every night. It was a completely different experience that was associated with the family's energy. And they had a different way of doing things, different songs to sing, different applications of healing. It was very interesting, and you learn a lot. But this is where the vision comes. And I remember laying on the bed, deeply engrossed, and you can hear all the animals in the jungle making their noises, and the medicine's beginning to work. And generally, what happens for me,
did you have to wait on this time, or did something come?
No, this is coming. This is working straight away, and now I've kind of broken the seal with the medicine, so the relationship it maintained. I can go back into the medicine now, and it works pretty much straight away for me. So so we're like four days in, I believe, and had a very profound moment where I just envisioned the most beautiful thing taking place, and it was inviting friends and family for various different types of healing, and the whole structure of how we was going to do it. We was going to offer yoga, we was going to offer a crystal healing with some drumming, and then even some medicine work was involved in the visions. Again, and up until this point, there had been no. I was never striving to do what we do now. It just it was overnight. It was shown to me, and I remember saying to Jen, like, when we get back, we need to do this, this, and this. So we continued with the holiday, with the retreat, and it was very profound, very, very deep. Lots and lots of healing taking place. Literally, when we got back, within a day or two, things were happening. People were coming through the door, and we was doing some really, really magical work, and it was just insane. And and I was ready. I was in a place where I had really been able to see the trend. And this is only my personal opinion, but when you've got a really, really true idea and perspective of yourself, you have something really true and authentic to offer others. And if there's if you're blind to yourself, it simply limits what you can see in others. That's all, and what's required is absolute honesty in all areas of your life, so that was where I was with it, and people were coming through the door, and they were having extremely profound experiences, and that in itself was enough. It sealed the deal for me.
Just from you doing some healing work
on people, and so, you know, within 4 or 5 months, there'd been a lot of people had come through the door, and they were transformed. People that had been drug addicts, drinking, severely depressed, suicidal, gone. No drink, no drugs. Not to say that their life's now perfect. That would be ridiculous.
It's on a better path. Just even coming back in the healing room.
Smiling. and glowing and looking well, and then people coming back and explaining what's happened, and now I'm starting to see the power of what is here and what's possible on a not only on a personal level, but
the energetic level that you give me, where you transform me. I had years and years of hurt and pain and trauma and nearly dying, and everything was built up for me. And then when you done your healing on me, I had one of the biggest releases I've ever had. It was euphoric. It was like just layers. I could feel it just coming off of me. And I was like, I've never had any healing like this before in my entire life.
That's what I'm saying. And so that, you know, just observing that, because, you know, there was a little part of me in the beginning of all this that doubted, you know, and thought, am I qualified to be doing what I'm doing? Am I good at what I'm doing? Am I actually doing anything at all? Is this all in my head? Am I going crazy? And that also presents another journey in itself, is really owning your greatness. And that's not being overpowering in that respect, being humble entirely, but knowing the power that you hold. And that is not just me, that is us. That is all of us. And when we can all access these powers from within.
Yes, absolutely. It doesn't matter what anyone's going through right now. We know personally, but if they can get the belief and go, I can get through this. They might be able to listen to this story that day and go, you know what, he's been through a lot.
Yeah.
If he's been through that,
there's hope. There's hope, and that's the key word, is hope. And you know, because for me there wasn't any. It was completely blind. I didn't know any of this was coming. As far as I was concerned, this was how my life was going to go for the rest of my life, and that was why suicide was an option, because the
you should imagine like 10, 15 years ago, whatever it was. I mean, 10 years ago, you're 32 now.
Visioning what's taking place now, it's mind-boggling. My brain couldn't have imagined something so spectacular.
In prison, and then coming out, going back to the old ways, but now coming back and having this elevated into your gift, into your power, into your purpose, but being shown it.
It's so amazing.
Being given it, it's two totally different.
Yeah, it's that, and again, it's like we can even speak a little bit about duality, and that plays out for all of us in our lives in some way or another. So it's like pleasure and pain, hot and cold. You know, there's an opposite of all things. Exactly that, and that is what makes a whole. You can't have one without the other, and
makes sense.
And exactly that, and in the same way. The dark and the light, and it doesn't. That's just how I'm describing it. Dark and the light. You could say it was pleasure and pain, or however you want to describe it. But it's a duality which makes a whole. And I couldn't have grasped or even imagined, or even this what's happening in my life right now. It wouldn't be possible without all of that darkness.
Of course.
Yeah.
And that gives you strength when you're going into your healing as well.
For sure, and that's where we find hope. If we can grasp the idea of duality in life, and know that, because even still now, but I know the flow of life, and this is how it goes. It's up and down. It's up and down. It's like the yin and yang, as you just said, hot and cold, pleasure and pain. It forms a whole, and we can't have one without the other. And for sure. The spiritual path is working through darkness and essentially aiming towards the light. And so that is the experience is going through the duality of existence. And so my understanding of life now, because that was the other part of my. So when I started a healing journey, in my mind, I thought that I would eventually arrive at a place where suffering does no longer exist, where I'm not going to be in any pain anymore, where I'm not going to be sad anymore, where depression and anxiety doesn't reside. And that in some cases is correct, but you are still going to be confronted with difficult situations, and
It's how we respond to them.
Exactly. And you're still going to feel human emotion. You're still going to feel the emotions that we have within our capacity, which in some cases is really, really hard to go through. But it's what makes the whole thing so beautiful. It's an emotional journey. Our suffering's a journey.
Yes.
And when you can really start to see it from this angle, all of a sudden it changes. You're no longer a victim of it, you know?
About raising our consciousness, raising our vibration,
Exactly.
learning, growing. Something happens to us, but being able to be aware of there's actually a good in this.
Yeah.
Like, I've had multiple accidents, like near-death accidents. And if it hadn't have happened to them, I wouldn't be sitting here doing this interview now.
Exactly that.
So I'm very, very grateful for my dark times. Like last year I had a car accident and was squashed by a lorry. But because I'd had a couple of major accidents before that and then died and whatever, I knew every day I was just like, meditate, read, watch something positive, watch something that makes me laugh. 5 months off work with my arm in a sling, like doing nothing, sitting at home, depressing, kept having panic attacks.
Yeah.
And it was just like this slope like that. I was like, I know there's going to be something amazing out of this. Just keep doing your work, keep doing your work, keep doing your work. And then I met you, and I met Jenna. And then I had the healing, and then everything just transformed. And it's been an absolute, like, now a rocket ship. And like, this year couldn't be any greater already, you know? And it's just like, but I knew I had to do my work. And it was, I knew I had to do it for a reason. And now I'm on this healing journey. I've got people coming to me already, and it's like we're going and doing private ceremonies for a few of my friends, and everything's just evolving now. So like watching your journey and hearing about your journey, and obviously the parallels of it, it's like now mine's starting to evolve, and I'm learning so much from just sitting here today and just hearing about how it's happened for you. It's inspirational. It really is.
It certainly is. It certainly is. And we was just saying off camera a moment ago that you know, it's when I was 22 or in my madness, you know, this sitting and watching this video may not have appealed to me, but you know, later on in my journey where I was absolutely desperate for change but just didn't know where to go with it, this could have been a life-saving moment just hearing this story. And that's all it is. It's about just creating the opportunity to change one life through you know, it amplifies the possibility of this story being heard by recording this video. You know, and it creates a greater chance of somebody stumbling across. And like in this scenario, I've come across a light at some point which has lit me up, and then you know I've done the same to others, lit them up, and then they go light someone else. This is how the world is going to change from an inward revolution, is that we start lighting each other up. And no one's above anyone in all of this. We're all serving a very, very important purpose.
The world's having a big transformation right now. And as you, I think it was you put on Facebook today, there's going to be a lot of people waking up this summer.
It's very exciting.
You can really feel the energy changing.
It's very exciting.
People are eating better now. People are looking after themselves. They're getting curious about the spiritual path. So it's all slowly unfolding, isn't it?
It's incredible. Like what's most beautiful is that some people and see, I've got still, because I went through a moment where I had my change, and then it was like that kind of separated me from society in some areas. But I'm in a place now where complete acceptance of all what is, and it's like, so that means that I can associate with any person, whether they're spiritual, whether they're not, or
doesn't matter.
It really doesn't matter. But what's beautiful about it is that people that had no capacity or comprehension for this type of way of awareness or way of seeing 2 years ago, 3 years ago, when I was at the very early stages of my eye opening.
Yeah.
They're starting to come around now, starting to become interested, and they're the individuals that you would never have guessed.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? They're the people that were
I didn't know you were doing that.
completely against it all, thought like I was a lunatic, like you're this, you're that, and probably had a lot to say about me behind my back. And you see them coming and having a little bit of interest now, and I'm like, what did I say?
Yes.
What did I say? I said I'd see ya. And that's what this summer's all about. I think it's
we're coming together. We're going to put something on together, like a big festival where we can have everyone just come down, get some healing, learn about it. Like there's just all these things slowly coming together, and I think we're going to have a really good summer with just teaching people about this and passing the healings on. And I think we spoke about going to go to Peru and do a trip over there. So talking about that, let's talk about some of your Peru trips as well. Perhaps that might be tie that in as well. Perhaps.
So we went Colombia, and that's when the vision really comes to me, and the idea of offering a spiritual service to the world. Or initially in the vision, it was a safe place, so it was friends and family or people that were going to accept the idea. There was the idea was very small, and but I did also have this vision of this house and this beautiful place and this where we're currently actually sitting, which is quite interesting.
So delve into that a little bit, because how it all come about was.
Yeah, so it started off with a very small vision, and we was living in a house in Brentwood, and so that we'd have like groups of people, and we had to move the sofas out the front room to be able to get all the people, because literally it went crazy, and we'd have like 30 people in the front room. And like it went mad very, very quickly, and at that point I knew we was on to like this wasn't just any old dream. This was happening. And so it was not ideal, and of course we're living in a normal neighbourhood, so we've got all sorts of stuff going on, like drums banging all hours of the night, and people having some exorcism type experiences where they're screaming and making some very.
Your neighbours loved you.
Well, probably not, and I would have. They probably, because again, on the surface as we walk out the door, we look like normal. And I'm not saying we're not normal, but we look like Joe Bloggs. But then by night, there is some very peculiar noises coming. So
they smelled a drug then.
Yeah, it wasn't. It was even weirder than that. The noises, like yeah, very strange. But so we knew at some point. So in my vision, there was this, and it wasn't exactly the house we are, but it was a nice big house, and magical things were going to take place there. And so we was aiming to my tenancy was up at that place, and so that I thought the way things were progressing with this work, it would be time to move. Now's a good time. So we went and had a look, and we was looking at all different places, and we was just driving home, and the lady come back to us and said, this house has literally just come on the market. Would you like to go and have a look at it? And I quickly scanned through the pictures, and I was like, we need to turn around. So we turned around, and as we pulled up outside, I already knew. I was like, this is the one. I didn't even look inside, I knew. We got, and she showed us there was a basement, and there was like a big, beautiful garden, and it was perfect. And it wasn't modern, it wasn't flash, but it was still smart and a nice house. It just ticked all the boxes. So I was like, we're moving in. Send me the paperwork. I paid a deposit. And we moved in, and the summer just passed. Well, I can't tell you. It has just been mind blowing. Like the work that we've done here, the gatherings that we've had, the ceremonies that we've had, the people we've had, hundreds of people through the door, and just made a really, really beautiful contribution to this healing for humanity. And it's just the very, very beginning of it, which is so exciting, because what I've seen take place already is huge. But what's to come? Whoa. And it's a plan over the next 20 years for me. I was describing to some guys downstairs in the breathing and yoga. My dream is it's not an immediate thing, but over the next 20 years, I'm going to turn into an older man. And when I arrive at 50, 60 years old, I want to have my tribe and our people and a place where we live freely and a place where we grow our own food and there, a place of love and a place of unity, and our children grow up like not school intelligent, life intelligent.
Well, the schooling system is still teaching people 70 years of age or textbooks.
Yes, it's ridiculous, and there is so much information that everything that I've learned has not come from a book, or it's come from a connection to something that I don't understand, or I kind of do understand it, but it's beyond my understanding. And this information comes and just become very, very smart through the dedication to these practices and whatnot. So yeah, it's a really exciting time coming, and so I'll tell you a little bit about the last trip. So me and a friend Luke went to Brazil. That was the trip before last, and so we went to go and visit the Varanawa tribe in Brazil. Really, really beautiful experience, and so we got there, and it was an absolute mission to get there. Hours and hours of traveling, and we arrived, and then we've got our suitcases on the back of mopeds, and we're going into the jungle, and we've got nothing but a hammock and a suitcase, and then beautiful, beautiful forest. And these guys play music night and day, fabulous musicians. Yeah, it was absolutely incredible, and a very, very tough experience. I mean, it sounds quite straightforward going into the jungle, but when you strip yourself of all of the things that you're so used to having, mobile phones and social media, whatever it is, good food, all of these things, sweets, whatever. Strip yourself of all of that stuff for a couple of weeks and see what happens in there.
In the jungle, like you're in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah.
Like you can't just come home.
No, and at times you do think, what the fuck am I doing? But that's the mind trying to worm its way out of a difficult situation. Yeah. So we had some ceremonies there that were really, really special, and it was just a lot of singing and a lot of dancing and a lot of celebration, and we played some really cool games by day. Like we would fight with the girls, like it was real. Like I've got some fabulous pictures where it's a ceremony itself. So the men come in and they have this great big whip, and you have to go in the middle, and they go whip you across the back.
That sounds a bit painful.
They got me quite bad on the side there, but of course you're hyped up and you're in it, and you've got all your face paints on, and you're going in beast mode, warrior mode. So it's all good, and lots of different games that they play. Where the girls will basically bash you up and give you a wedgie, grab your balls and pinch you and punch you and all that. Yeah, we got bashed up by the girls, so they were funny. And they had no tops on as well, so there's boobs everywhere, and it's carnage, but it's fantastic fun. And lots of ceremonies. But what I realised, because when I got on that trip, normally I've got an intention when I go to a trip, or a lot of the time I'm finding life quite uncomfortable, or I'm getting a little bit down, or
this time using a good life.
Yeah, and so that when I went there in the medicine, it kind of left me with like, what's my purpose for being here? Which then led me to discover the reason why I was there, and I was able to see that the tribes have got an ancient. So basically, the information never gets lost. So in our generations, our families are broken. Mum goes over there, dad goes over there. Any knowledge that is worth knowing gets lost, and that was lost for us a very long time ago. But in these environments, in these tribe environment, the sacred knowledge is passed from generation to generation. It never gets lost.
It never changes.
And it never changes.
Exactly the same.
Precisely, it's tradition.
Right? Yeah.
So that is what they've got is sacred, ancient knowledge that's been held forever. But on the other hand, what I was able to see is that due to the cities expanding, due to the availability of alcohol and drugs now, and this is all over, cocaine, cannabis, alcohol, whatever it might be, now some of the tribes, some of the tribes are stealing from each other. They're starting to take drugs, and they're starting to, there's these things that we're experiencing here are now starting to.
The Western world's going over there.
Yeah, and of course the cities are expanding, and the city makes all of this stuff available. So some of these guys are going out and getting pretty fucked up and coming and infecting their sacred tribe, really, so to speak. And it was in this moment that I sat and I realised, because they haven't yet experienced the depth of this darkness, I have.
Mm-hmm.
So I can tell you in advance that
what's going to happen.
You go down that road and see all of this beautiful family that you've got sitting in the. Because for us, I go there. I come from I come from a good family, but it's a broken family nonetheless. Now, my idea of perfection in terms of family is mum, dad, brothers, sisters, cousins, all of us together, but we actually love each other and adore each other and thoroughly enjoy each other's company. That is my idea of heaven in terms of a family union. But this is it. And I go there and I see the chief and I see the son and I see the daughter and I cry because of the beauty of this thing.
So innocent.
And it was just so pure and love, and they're all singing together and dancing and like.
But they've hardly got any money.
Yeah, they've got nothing. They've got everything. They've got the forest, and that's all they need. But again, now the resources are being taken. Yeah, they've got this pureness about them that is slowly in some kind. This is not. I'm not saying that this is. But what I experienced on this particular occasion was that the chief's son had been out drinking alcohol the night before the ceremony. And for some reason, I had this connection with this particular dude. There was just something about him that was familiar to me.
Yeah.
So one of the girls that was kind of staying with the tribe and had been there for some time, she explained to me that she was really upset. And I said, "Tell me what's wrong." And she explained to me that some of the guys now are starting to drink and starting to take drugs, and blah, blah, blah. And she said that this particular guy had gone out and had been drinking. So I was like, you know what? I've got something very valuable for this guy. So I wrote a big long piece of writing and told all about my life and all about my drug taking and about how I've never had the family. Like, what you have got here is everything I've ever wanted. And the reason I travel all this way around the world is to experience what you've got. Believe me, because they've got access to Facebook. So they're looking at our houses and our cars and all of this stuff. They believe that we live in heaven. Now, I can understand why it looks like that, but it's not the truth. It's not the truth. And then we're looking at them, thinking that they live in heaven. Of course, it's very human of us to look outside of ourselves and believe that the grass is greener on the other side. So I then see that, it's not about, again, following their lead or following our lead, but combining what we've got.
Coming as one.
Precisely that. And the way that I see it, because of what you just said there, that their tradition is carried from the past, from thousands of years. So they've got, essentially they're carrying the essence of the past. We're carrying the essence of the future. Because if you compare their tradition to our current way of living, we are living the way of the future, technology and all the rest of it. They're living the ancient sacred way of the past. If we can combine the future and the past, and so we bring that into the present moment. That was the realization that I had. They are the past, I am the future, and we are, as we sit here now, the present moment.
We've got the dark, they've got the light.
Exactly that. But what's happening is a shift where they're now having to experience the darkness, and we're experiencing the light. Yeah.
So this is a lot of our people going over there, Westerners going over there, they're learning the traditions and bringing it back.
Precisely. But it's
like it is, as you're saying, you can feel it merging.
Yeah.
Never thought about it.
Yeah, and it needs to merge rather than us following one way or another. We need to bring because
learn.
Yeah, because they've got so much to learn about our way of life, and so much of our life is actually valuable and worth knowing. But at the same time, we've lost the ancient way of living. So if we can bring that, and I only know
medicines.
all of that. We only know.
Yeah.
We live in with a life that society expects, you know, and we're doing all the puppet stuff. But underneath that is a sacred practice taking place, which is the ways of the past, and this is what's saving us in the now. Practicing these things. So yeah, very interesting, and that was what I got from that trip. It was the merging of the two realms, so to speak. Because essentially, as well, when you're that far away from home, and that was the way that I see it, when you get on a plane and go halfway around the world, essentially you're in a different dimension. There's nothing to say that essentially you're dead.
Different languages.
Yeah, you're dead to this world because you're thousands. You know, there's. So yeah, very, very interesting. Very, very interesting. And then I had a trip. So I've had a few. Trip in Costa Rica, which is where I met the Shipibo. Went to a retreat called Soltara. It was like quite a commercial retreat, but the best. It was clockwork. The place was run to the highest of standards. It offered 5-star accommodation, but also you got the traditional ancestral way of ayahuasca, so it was great because you had your ceremony and then got in a double bed with air conditioning, so it was the best of both worlds. But I had some really, really cool transformation, and that is where I met Sui, who's a maestro, so Sui and Sylvia. So then a little bit later on,
and for people who don't know what maestro is a
shaman or a healer.
Yeah, they run the ceremony.
Correct. Yeah. So that was where I met Sui. So then quite recently I had a little bit of a wobble, got a lot of stuff going on with work, and of course this transition in my life is kind of offering me a new path. And so that what I can see that my business offers me a lot of stress. And of course the reason that I wanted a business or wanted to be involved in business was because I was so driven by money. Of course money is essential to exist, and so that, but my idea of how money plays out in my life now is not the same as it was, and so that my drive for business is a lot less than it was. Yeah. And so that the idea of putting myself through such stress to achieve something, i.e. money, which is something that I don't really want anymore, it just feels so uncomfortable and wrong. So I'm being presented with this new path, but I've got a lot of transition is happening, and it's very, very difficult and very, very painful and very, very confusing, and sometimes I find myself in a state of fear, and it's all part of the journey. But anyway, so I knew that I needed to go on another trip, and I took my friend with me. We went to meet Sui in Peru. So this was just a couple of months back. We got there. It was the most difficult trip I've ever been on. It was really, really tough. So it was plant diet initially, and then there were some ceremonies towards the later part of it. And it started off difficult. You know, our bags didn't follow us to Peru, so we got there. All we had was the clothes that we was wearing. Luckily, I'd made a mistake booking a connecting flight, so our bags just turned up before we went. We got there anyway. Then it's another flight to Bukapa. I don't know if I said that right, but that's how I say it. Yeah. We got there 6 o'clock in the morning. Then we get on this little tuk-tuk down to the where the boats are at the clock tower. Get on this boat. We're all waiting, and this holiday or this retreat or this trip, whatever you want to call it, it was a waiting game the whole way through. It was
testing your patience.
Everything involved waiting, and I don't like waiting. Yeah. So we get on the boat. We waited for a few hours first, actually, and then we go. So we set off down, and it's about 2.5 hours down the Amazon River. It was beautiful. By this time, we're shattered anyway, so I'm kind of half asleep. We get there. Then they've got their sort of tribe headquarters, so to speak. And then we go on a walk. Now, I'm assuming that we're staying in one of these wooden shacks, but no, we're walking into the jungle now. So I'm like, they put our bags on a little back of a motorbike, they whiz off. So now we're going for a stroll. So I asked how long. He says about an hour we're going to be walking for. I said, all right, cool. It's absolutely scorching hot. So we're walking along, sweating hot. Got to this. It opens up. Now there's some buildings here. They've made like a little place to cook food. They've made some little like shacks. There's the big ceremony sort of maloka has been built. So I'm like, all right, cool. So he tells us this is the diet center. So I'm like, all right, cool. So we've just arrived. We go over. We're pretty tired, and it's just a wooden shell and a wooden floor. Now they recommended that we bring like a blow up bed. Jenna's bought me a blow up bed that can only be blown up by electricity. So
you're in the jungle.
Yeah, so there's obviously no fucking electric. So I'm like, so I'm like, shit, man. So what am I sleeping on? So he gives us this thin little mat. So I put that on the floor, and it's cool. All right. So then we put a little mosquito on it over it. Now I'm laying on it, and it's really not comfortable. It's like basically sleeping on the wooden floor. So I've said, Sue, you're gonna have to get a couple more mats up here, geez, and he brings them over for us. So that was it. We take a look around. We're in the middle of the jungle, miles and miles and miles in. And it starts to sort of sink in that you're not going to be going anywhere for nearly 2 weeks. And there's nothing. So you're just in a wooden hut in the middle of the jungle. And there's a swamp there. And when I've arrived, my head's quite crackers. My head's a bit messed up. So we're like 4 or 5 days now. So the first morning's vomitivo. So we drink from a bucket.
That says it all.
I've done that once before, but this is John's first time for all of this as well. So I'm getting a little bit excited to get.
So what is it like a?
It's like so they did it with lemongrass before, but they made it out of a particular plant. I'm not going to pretend to know that I know what the plant was, but it's a plant that was readily available where we was. And they make this drink, and so that you drink from a bucket, drink until you cannot drink anymore. It's obviously your stomach. In the end, you're naturally just spewing up, and then he asks you to do it again. So you keep going, and then you go. So 3 times you do that, just to clear out the top half, like the stomach and whatnot. Then they give you like a shot of this. It was like garlic and onion or something up the nose. It wasn't that, but that's what it smelled like. Up the nose. It's like, okay. So that was the first morning of waking up, and so that was it. And then they walk off, and that's it for the day. So you just sat there. and it's a long old day. I tell you, we get up at 5:30 in the morning. The sun's bright at 5:30. And it got to 9 o'clock in the morning, and it felt like you'd been there all day. And I'm like, what are we gonna do? So you spend a bit of time meditating. What's the time? 10 o'clock. You know, it went on. It was relentless. It just went on, and then. So there's no food or nothing at this point either. So you've got nothing to look forward to. So now you're starting to really see the truth about what's happening in here. And I'm going berserk. Second day comes over. He's got a bit of a smile on his face now. He's got this drink. Drink this. Cool. It's something to do. It's something to do. Like, you know, and I'm absolutely starving now, so anything will do. Drink. And he smiles. He says, 10 minutes. So I'm like, all right, whatever. And then, so John Boy's next to me. So I'm like, come on, son. And he's like, fuck off. He's got the because when we got there, he was like, mate, what is this? I'm like, this is it, mate. And he's like, what? Like 11 days here? What are we gonna do? And I'm like, I don't know. Like, let's just get through it. Just get through it. So I'm like, come on, mate, you've got to get this down here. So he comes out, and I said, come on, you've got to get that down. He's like, no, I don't want it. And I said, come on, mate, we've travelled all this way. Let's just get it down here. So he gets it down him. Now I'm laying, waiting for something drastic to happen. Like, cool. 20 minutes past, nothing. Half hours past, I'm cool. He's spewing his guts up badly, like really in a bad way. Does not stop being sick. Now I'm like a little bit of a chuckle next door. I'm thinking I'm sweet. Like,
I've got away with it.
Yeah, and then all of a sudden, it was like a snake inside my stomach erupted. I thought, oh, here we go. So I'm running down to the toilet, which is about a 2-minute walk from our hut. So we took this drink and we're running. I'm going to toilet, going to toilet, going to toilet, going to toilet. It was all day. And I'm thinking, like, how on earth can I still be going to the toilet? It was just literally a clear out beyond anything I've ever experienced, and literally hanging onto the tree out the front there, just got him spewing up. I'm just, I didn't have the energy to get there. Didn't have the energy to get there in the end, and in the end, I'm just crawling back into bed, and then I'm like, oh no again, oh back out, then back in bed again. Oh, it was horrendous. Like by the end of it, because we've been going all day just sicking and pooing. By the end of that day, I was blown out. So I slept quite well that night. Next day comes. So I'm thinking like, oh, what's happening? What's happening today? Yeah, nothing. We sit there. Okay, all right. So it's a whole day, and I'm not gonna bore you with it, but I tell you, it was really tough. Just the day, we took some angel cards with us, and we took some rapé, so we would share a rapé. We would obviously sit and talk for a bit, but there were still so many hours in the day, and by 6 o'clock at night, it was pitch black, so much so that you couldn't see that far in front of you.
Still warm.
It was still warm, but it was pitch black dark, and we had no phones or anything, so there was no light. And so we couldn't see that far in front of us. So we had these little mosquito things that would try and get the mosquitoes away. We'd be sat on a mat on the floor with this net round us in the pitch black. So by 6 o'clock, you really wanted to be getting to sleep. First few nights were cool because we'd been clearing out and we was physically exhausted.
How long was you there for?
We was in that scenario for 12 days.
Wow.
So now I'm starting to understand what it's like to be kidnapped and thrown in a hole, because that's what it felt like. This is what it feels like when you've been kidnapped and starved. That's what it was. It's what it was horrendous. And my mind, I tell you what, I've never seen it in such extreme light, but it was just vicious. Anger and I wanted to rip my skin off. I just wanted out of this body. I wanted to get out. It was horrible. And then you had like a little bucket to wash with some leaves in it and that, and which actually come from a pool with all frogs in it. And, it was cool. It was cool. I loved the experience. So we've got to like the 5th day now. But I'm like, are we not eating the whole time? Because I can't do that. I like my food, and that was the most challenging part. I think is having the food taken away.
The thing is, if you'd have gone in with the mindset of I'm fasting for 5 days. Like you
I would have been prepared.
But when you go in there thinking, I'm still going to eat, and then all of a sudden you're not getting food, then you get it.
Yeah.
It's like,
because that was the only comfort I had, and you've taken it away from me, sort of thing. And it was difficult. So, like on the 5th day, so he'd come in the morning, because he'd come and check on us in the morning, but then you wouldn't see him again all day. And it was like, even just a little visit from them kind of broke the day up a little, because you thought they might offer something exciting, which they never did. And so
playing mind games.
Yeah, it was, but I think it was done in a subtle, in a perfect way. It was rumbling me, and I know it was rumbling my pal as well. We was by the 5th day, we were both in bad shape, and he was like, "I'm going." I said, you ain't going anywhere, mate. Trust me. Yeah. So 5th morning he comes, and a big smile on his face in the morning. Ayahuasca. So he was like, "Whee!" So he was like, "Yeah." So what he means is we're going to make it. So we pick the chacuna. He's got the yellow vine buried in the floor for some reason. I don't know what. I think he might have picked it and then wants to keep it preserved for a later date. I'm assuming that was the idea of that, the method to his madness. So anyway, we pick the ingredients and we sit and we bash it all together. I've got some cool videos of that. It was a nice experience. So we spend the morning doing that. It was quite tiring. I haven't eaten for God knows how long. So just holding this hammer is a difficult thing to do. And but we're happy to be doing something. So we cook the medicine. So he's cooking now. Tells me 3 hours, it'll be done. So I'm like, cool. Ceremony tonight? No. Mañana. I'm like,
go away another day. No, you just chopped it all up.
He's just carrot always there like so. But then he comes. So then we go back to the shack. So I'm pissed. I'm like, he's doing it on purpose. So then we go back. But now we've got something to look forward to because we know ceremony tomorrow, so I can get through tonight. Yes. And I forgot to mention that. So it was boiling hot one moment and absolutely pissing down like the most torrential rain you've ever seen. That was the contrast, and in between it was just deadly humid. So the mosquito situation was like I've never experienced. You got up in the night for a wee, and you would look like you got chicken pox in the morning, absolutely eaten alive. And of course, when you get up for a wee, they land on you, then you get in your net, so they're inside and they'll have you. With a pair of us, were covered head to toe, and then by the third day, scratching. The mosquito, the whole body covered, and then our mats that we were sleeping on were damp and wet. It was tough. In the dark, on a damp mat, getting bitten by mosquitoes with no food, no nothing. It was like in the dark, you're going crackers, but it was good to push yourself to that level. So then the ceremony comes, and so this is like I think we've been there nearly like 7 days now. No, this is the first ceremony, so we go down. We're all ready. We're there, bang on. I think 10 minutes before we were meant to be there, we sit down, and we wait some more. I'm saying to my pal, like, what are they doing? What is going on? We've been sitting like 3 hours just sitting there. Like everyone's just sitting.
No, not even a thing.
Nothing's happening. They're just sitting there smoking. And I'm like, getting the boys a little bit, like it's all good.
Yeah.
But he comes just at the right moment, just after I've said that. But he doesn't know I've said that. And he comes in and he serves the medicine. Bang. It's a relief, because I know that all of this anger is going to come out of me in a minute, based on my experience with this medicine. And I have been rumbled more than I've ever been rumbled. So I'm quite excited to let go of this. And we take the medicine, we lay down, and it's very, very strong. I mean, immediately I drink it and it's alive inside me. Lay down, I get quite a cold sensation come over me. Within 40 minutes, I'm really being sick from the depths of me. Like it's pulling, and you can feel it's like a pulling everything out of you as you're being sick. Really hurting, come from really deep within. Interesting ceremony, and then they sing an Icaro, which is like a healing song. So it's the song of the plants. And I experienced this once before with Sui in Costa Rica. Really, really magical. And so the idea is that it's the plants singing through the maestro. And of course, so in our traumas or in any type of traumatic experience, it gets stored in our bodies and in our physical, so we've got like energetic meridians, and these traumas sometimes create blockages in certain points of the body, which creates certain illnesses in physical forms or depression or whatever it is. So the idea of the Icaro is to relay a new map over these specific points, which then creates a new place for this energy to flow. Sounds quite far-fetched. How could a song do such a thing? I've experienced it. I felt it. Again, this is an experiential thing. Go and see for yourself what this magic can do. So that's what happens. So generally, they wait for you to have this big purge, is to get all of this energy out of you, and then they sing their songs to you. So we was really lucky. We had 3 healers singing to us at once. Really powerful. Second night was where it was at. So the second night was a meet like the night after, and I drank the medicine, and it was that moment, not that I've always been waiting for, but I've kind of given up with that now, looking for visions and looking for pretty colours and jaguars and unicorns and all the rest of it. That's just an added bonus to whatever process you go through if you manage to see these wonderful things. But on this particular occasion, within 10 minutes, my whole body turned to ice. Laid, and then I got this overwhelming fear, and I've done lots of medicine work, never really felt this sensation before. For a moment, I didn't think I was going to be all right. I was thinking, no, I'm not, no, this isn't good. I'm not going to a good place here. What's happening? I'm starting to get a little bit, and all of a sudden, this explosion into this world that I've had glimpses of it, but this was. I was engrossed in a world beyond my understanding. This place was familiar but unfamiliar all at once, and it was that was the world of Ayahuasca. This was a different realm.
Next dimensions.
Yeah, it was just mind-boggling, and I remember just being absolutely strapped to my bed,
enjoying the show.
Yeah, and the sensations that were going through my body. So then what happened? Started to feel this coming through my body. But also with the vision I had, there was these two like fans, and they was going cleaning the cells on a molecular level. And so that the vision and the sensation that I was getting was working all at once. So what I could feel, I could see what was happening on a molecular level, and it was. And then it was like there was hands or something, whatever, I don't know how you would describe it. Something was coming in my stomach. My stomach would go, and then it would go, and then you'd feel like something else go. I was being pushed and pulled, and I'm only laying on a bed. No one's near me, and I'm being touched, and things all over me, and things are working on me. Like there's a lot of stuff happening, and I'm just laying, and all I can really hear is the sound of my groaning. Oh, like as I'm being touched, and I'm sort of observing it, but aware of and feeling it all at once, and completely engrossed in this place, and just like this is the moment. But then it starts to get a little bit overwhelming, and I'm like trying to move, but I can't. I'm stuck on the bed, and I'm like, hang on a minute, no, I don't like this. I'm like, pull myself up, sort of thing, and now I've sat up. I feel really, really sick, so I've got my bucket and I let rip. That was it. So then we only did 3 ceremonies on this trip. The third one, I'm thinking now because of the last one. So we had a rest in between. We had one day off. Last ceremony, I'm thinking to myself, God knows what this is going to be like based on what's just happened. But it wasn't. It was the same medicine, same environment. You know, like I took it, started to have some really strange thoughts, like where's my phone charger? Where, you know, bizarre, weird things. I'm in the middle of it.
What's Mum having for dinner?
Yeah. Just
in the middle of Dubai and in the Ayahuasca ceremony going, what Mum's having for dinner?
Just not relevant.
No.
Not relevant and bizarre. And that was exactly it. So like you started to have a few of them weird thoughts, and then you're like, what? Where did that come from? So now I'm starting to think, oh, here we go again. And it stops. And so I find it quite uncomfortable sometimes to be sat upright for a long period of time, like particularly in my lower back. But I was just completely locked in, and it was like that, you know, everything just aligned. And I just sat, and I sat solid for 4 hours, did not move. Just like, and the only way I could describe it was like being like a tree. It was
grounded, rooted.
I exist. I'm here. I don't need to move. I'm absolutely comfortable just existing. There are no thoughts that are disturbing me, no feelings that are disturbing me. I'm in this position. My body's not uncomfortable. I'm completely present, completely grounded, completely content. And I remained in that state for about 4 hours. And so they sung their songs and all the rest of it. And I didn't even feel like I was going to be sick. And then right at the end of the ceremony, it come a really big sick, but completely locked in. And that was the end of that trip. And by the way, they did feed us, so they fed us.
Yeah.
When we started,
Thank God for that, yeah.
When we started the ayahuasca ceremonies, they feed us, but only very light. But it was like rice with an egg on it, and I tell you what, that
beautiful.
It was more than beautiful.
Yeah, you actually start to appreciate when things are taken away from you. Appreciate
just the basics, just to see an egg.
Yeah.
Oh, I can't tell you. Yeah. I can't tell you. And because we knew that we was getting food again the next day, like we were like little dogs up there begging for an egg.
Please,
give us an egg. Yeah. Incredible. So that was the last trip, and I've come back.
So you come back, and now you've had this major experience. How did that affect your life here in the UK, and how's that affected your healing work?
Well, you know, this work is everlasting, never ending, and there are so many avenues of self-discovery to go down, and so that I find that every time I start to encounter a difficult moment now in life, in my emotional ways and feelings and whatnot, it's presenting a new realization. It's presenting a new lesson to me. And so that essentially was. So
you're actually embracing them now.
For sure. But you know what it is? At times, you're kind of delusional to yourself in some areas until it all becomes apparent. And so that, and even still, there's aspects of myself that I'm unaware of or that I don't understand. I certainly don't know it all, you know, and I'm fully aware of that, and I know that I'm open to the idea that I might be wrong in a lot of what I'm saying, and I'm open to the idea that you know. So when I went to Peru, I had a couple of big life choices being presented to me, and rather than just acting upon them, just open to the idea that, you know what, there might be something inside of me that is needing attention, and there's something going on inside of me, because, you know, it's easy for me to look outside of myself and say, you know, I don't want my business no more, or I don't want this relationship no more, rather than look at why am I uncomfortable in these scenarios. And so that was kind of what happened. And what I was able to see from this particular trip is that, and it's a trait that's actually carried from sorry, my mum, and in advance, and it's a people pleasing thing, you know. We go above and beyond to do things for others, and then feel quite disappointed and upset when we didn't get the gratification, or you know, we didn't get the desired outcome from going above and beyond. And so that what I've been doing in my life, and particularly in my relationships, is doing that, creating situations and scenarios which eventually left me feeling resentful and like hard done by in some way, you know. But they were situations that I created, and that comes from an emptiness within, you know. So there's an empty part of me that wants to create, and I use my work as an example, or relationship as an example, creating sort of dependencies on me. You know, it's all right, I'll do it, I'll do this, I'll do that. But then sort of resenting the individuals in question. But it was never nothing to do with them. It started with me and it ended with me. And the only person who got upset in all of it was me. So it was a self-discovery in that respect, that I remained open to the idea, although I wanted to scream and shout and kick and all the rest of it. Right, let's kind of have a bit of time where I can have a good look at this. And so that when it was only right at the end of the trip did it all go. I was like, you know what? I create each individual moment, which eventually leads me feeling this way. So
this is good for people listening to this. Everyone's going through their own thing.
Yeah.
And we're all creating our own reality. We're all creating, when we're having negative thoughts, and we keep going over the same negative thoughts, we can only get a negative outcome. So we've got to change our pattern. We've got to change our thinking to get that positive outcome, the one we want, the solution that we want.
That's definitely it. And you know, and life is just a series of choices and decisions. And you know, we might make a choice, for example, a choice that we made 5 years ago might only be impacting us in a negative way now. You know, so but because there's such a length of time between now and that choice that we made, we can't associate, or we can't bring that awareness. Like, how did I create this? But you forgot that a choice that you made all that time ago has led to this moment. You know, so, and that's what happens. We make a series of choices and decisions, which in some cases lead us to positive outcomes and some to negative. But generally, when we hit a negative outcome, we don't want to take responsibility for it, or we don't want to be accountable for that. It's not our fault. But you know, if you really, really look at everything that's taking place in your life, or the situation that you currently find yourself in, which you don't like, you did choose it. I guarantee it. You chose it. You know, so there's nothing wrong in going back, and that's what you got to do, is account for that choice that you made.
Put your hands up.
I created this. Yeah. You can just make a new choice now. Get back to where you want to be.
Yes. So last question. This is a great podcast, that's for sure. So what's your intentions with your healing and what you want to do for the planet?
Yeah. So I've got such big and beautiful dreams, and I know that they're shared with all of those that are currently around me and us, and my intentions moving forward. I've learned a lot, and I've been humbled so profoundly by what's taken place. My vision is to is to just bring us together, to form the family that we are. You know, it's not about me telling anyone what to do or what they, telling anyone what they should do, but it's about obviously presenting a story, which is what we're doing now, and just making some suggestions to what you can do if you would like to embark on that path, and breaking all the belief systems down that we all carry that separates us, whether it be color of our skin, may it be that this person's gay or what, it really, they're just ideas that create separation. I think just to blow away all of that and to create a family, we're well on the way to that. We've got a good 100 of us now, and we call each other family.
Let's go and keep growing and growing and growing.
So to build upon what we've already created is for sure an intention, and to flourish in what we're doing, and to, for me, I take it very seriously. It's not a joke for me. It's serious work. It's the most important thing in my life, and I take pride in what I do. I want to do it to the best of my ability. I want to, I just want to see us all grow and shine together, and that's the beautiful part of it. There's if we can all get ourselves to a standard of well-being, of what's possible at that point when we've got 500 of us, 1,000 of us, 1,000,000 of us.
When we've all got a collective comes together with the same intention, the power of that is...
Well, if you even one of you is a powerful dude, two of you is twice as powerful, but when you're talking about humanity aligning, I can't even fathom what that may look like, but what I've seen so far, I think it's just to continue the work that we've already done, and I don't have to really do much, and we don't really have to do much. It's happening, So it's about just getting up, going with the flow. Looking after yourself is the most important part of it. Not depleting yourself, trying to give too much to others. So that's a part of my process. It's been a part of my process as well, because you go hammer and tong when you first get this stuff, and you want to give it to the world, and you tire yourself out and all the rest of it, and then you start to understand that you need to look after yourself in order to give the maximum to others. There's just so much learning, so much learning. Yeah,
you're on a great path.
Yeah,
and it's going to be a great journey. I'm looking forward to doing more with you.
Yeah, so am I.
So if people wanting to get healing from you and come be in your space and whatever, how would they do that?
So
is it just purely a private thing that you do, or is it open for people to come?
It really depends. Look, it's open to the world. It's open to the world, and it's not. There's no preference on an individual. That anybody can come through our door, but as long as they have got, as long as they want this, and that their intention is aligned with ours. That's all that's required, is that you want to grow and that you want to find your heart, really. You can contact us via Facebook. We've got a page at Orium Horus, which is the golden sun god. It's the representation in Latin, and Horus is obviously the sun god, and the Orium is the golden.
Yeah, I'll put a link in the video.
That would be cool. Yeah. So you can contact us via that page, which is on Facebook. We've also got a website, which is www.oriumhorus.com. Got all sorts of things happening, shop, and you can book for various different types of treatments and stuff. Yeah, this house is open to all people, and that was always the purpose of it, is to be shared with everybody, and so yeah.
Amazing. I'm sure you can hopefully get some people come through the door, we can help them and get them on their journey to becoming and living a better life and overcoming what they might be going through as well. So, absolutely perfect, Bill. Thank you. Man. Absolutely. Cheers. Pleasure doing this. And guys, hope you enjoyed this. I hope you get some value from it. But do remember as well, ayahuasca and everything we was talking about is illegal in many countries, and Bill's obviously going over to Peru and the jungle where it's all being made, and it's where it is actually legal. So But do your own research. If you're saying you're interested in, please do reach out. We'd love to answer your questions for you.
Yeah.
And hopefully, please come and have some healing with this man and Jenna and his beautiful girlfriend, because they're very special and they're doing a great job. They really are. Thank you very much. And guys, this is OVERit Podcast, Series 2, Episode 2. Over and out. See you soon. Bye-bye.